Hi and welcome to this video. I've just deployed these two virtual machines on VirtualBox. We're going to see how to install Kubernetes using KubeADM. I'm going to do everything manually, so just follow along with me step by step. If you don't already have or you don't know how to deploy machines for your Kubernetes cluster, that's what I did in the last video. So go and watch that video. I will put the link in the description. If you want to add more, you can add more worker nodes. That's something you can do. However, in my case, I just want to have one control node and one worker node. So let's get started. The post I want to use, I've already created the post I want to use, so I can just search for it. Bizanosa install Kubernetes. So I will use this post. I'm going to follow this post to install Kubernetes. So let's get started. So everything that I said in the previous video is what we are going to do in this video. And that is, after creating the virtual machines, I'm not going to use the VirtualBox interface. So I'm just going to close that. This was the installation phase. I'm just going to close this and I'm going to log into my VirtualBox machines using Git bash. So that's something that I covered in the last video. As I said, the link is in the description. So make sure you install Git bash to follow along with me. And I'm just going to have these two Git bash windows, one to work on the control node and the other one to work on the worker node. So first, I need to log into my VirtualBox. Let's see if they're running. They're powered off. So I'm going to power them on, but I want to start them in headless mode. I want to start in headless mode. So that's not going to give me the interface, the VirtualBox interface. I don't want to use it. I'm just going to use Git bash because it's much easier to use. So let me log into my control node. I'm just going to do SSH. And the user that I created was Ubuntu. I'm going to log into this IP 192.168.4.15. I will accept this. And then I will enter my user password. I'm just going to copy the same command again. Copy. Come down here. Shift insert to paste. I will do Control A to go to the beginning of the line. I'll do Control E to go to the end of the line. And I want to change this to 16. That is the IP address for my worker node. Yes. Enter. All right, so I've successfully logged into both of my nodes. I can update the server, but I don't want to type a lot. I don't want to type the update command. So I already have various aliases that I usually use. So I'm going to add the aliases in my bash file. So you can add it to your bash profile for your user. Since I'm on Ubuntu, I think Vim is already installed. So I can use Vim, VI, and I'm going to edit my bash .bash rc. Since I'm using Vim, I can do Shift G to go to the end of the file, and I can do Shift, or I can just do I to go into insert mode. And then I want to insert various aliases here. I'm just going to copy. I'm going to paste this in the description below. So if you want to use them, you can use them. And just so that I can know where I'm at, I'm going to do alias, comment it out there. I'm going to add that comment and then I'm going to paste in. So I can just do Shift Insert to paste in Vim. And then I'm going to do Escape and Shift ZZ to save. And then I want to activate that profile. So what I can do is I'm just going to press the up arrow to get to that command. Then I'm going to do Control A to go to the beginning of the line, then Control Delete to delete that. And I want this to be my source bash file. So once I do that, I can use it and I want to update the server. So this is just a profile for apt update, apt upgrade. I'll let that update and I will do the same thing for my worker node. VI Shift G to go to the beginning, to the end of the line. And then you can do Shift A to go into insert mode. And I'm just going to paste, Escape, Shift ZZ to save. Control A, go to the beginning of the line, Control Delete to delete that. And then I'm going to do source, enter, and now I can use my aliases. Okay, so I can see the update up here is asking to. I'm just going to press tab and then press OK. And I will let this one complete the update as well. Tab, enter. So I'll do Control L, clear the screen, Control L to clear the screen. So let's go ahead and start installing Kubernetes, and I'm going to use this. So I'll put the link in the description as well. We've already set up our virtual machines with 2 GB RAM and 2 virtual CPUs, so we can forget that. But something else that I need to do is I need to disable swap mode. If you are on a cloud environment, you can just copy that and paste it, and that's going to work. With VirtualBox, let me just do it manually. With VirtualBox, I'm just going to copy that. So this will turn off the swap. Shift insert, enter. Shift insert on both nodes, enter. And this is going to turn off swap, but we still need to turn it off completely. And to do that, you just edit the fstub file. So vi, and of course to do this, you're going to need sudo. So sudo vi etc fs tab. This is a file that initializes all your storage devices. As usual, I'm just going to do Shift G to go to the end of the line. And then I'm going to go into insert mode by pressing I. And then I'm going to comment out the last line. And then I will escape and do Shift ZZ. I will copy that. Shift insert. Enter. Shift G to go to the end of the file. And then I to go into edit mode, and then I will edit out the line. So once I edit out this line, when the server restarts, it's not going to enable swap. Escape, Shift ZZ, and that's it. The next thing that most people forget to do is to edit the hosts file. So the host file, you edit this so that it can let kubelet, and basically it will just let anything that interacts with your server know that your IP is the IP that you've chosen in this hosts file. So let's see how to edit this. If you want your node IP to be registered by Kubernetes, then edit your hosts file and add your IP address. If you're in a public cloud environment and you want to use your private IP, you can add your private IP in the etc hosts file, so that when it interacts with other nodes on the cluster, the nodes will know that that is the IP for that node. So that's why you edit the etc hosts file. So I'm going to do Shift insert. I don't want to type the IP address. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do IP A. I just want to copy my IP, and my IP is that 192.168.4.16. That is for the worker node, but I want to edit for the control node. So I'm just copying it from there to avoid typing. I'll scroll down a bit, and then I want to copy and paste this line. So on Vim, I can just do YY and then small p, and that's going to copy and paste the line. And then I want to go into insert mode. So I'm going to do Y, and I will delete that IP. Then I'll do Shift insert to paste. So the reason why I wanted to use Git bash for this, because you can see it's easy to copy and paste. Unlike if you're using the VirtualBox interface, it will be a nightmare. So I'm just going to add the IP address for the control node. That's pretty much it for that. I'm going to do escape and then Shift ZZ. And I will come down here. I'll just copy that and do the same for my worker node. Control L and then Shift insert, enter, and I can just copy the IP from here. I'm going to copy, come down here. I want to copy that line, so I'm just going to do YY P to copy, and then I'm going to delete that. Shift insert, and then 16 to edit that. So make sure you add your IP address like that with your host name. So of course, if you are in a public cloud environment, you need to use a fully qualified domain name as your host name. In this case, this is VirtualBox. That's why I'm using this. But in a cloud environment, you're probably going to need something like subdomain.example.com, something like that. Escape, Shift ZZ. So even this one, I'm just going to do Shift ZQ to get out of that. Of course, if you're in a cloud environment, again, make sure you allow these ports and these ports on your firewall. This is just for the items above. You can ignore that. Now installing, the first step, we need to install a runtime. And in this example, I'm going to install containerd. I'm going to start with this. Let me just copy all of that. These are prerequisites for networking with the container, and all this you can find on the documentation. The links for things that are done here are there, and this will lead you to the documentation where you can confirm or find the latest versions of everything that you need. So I'm going to copy that, and I will do this on both nodes. Shift insert, enter. Worker node, Shift insert, enter. And you can verify. I'm not going to verify. It's just to verify that everything you've done there is as it should be. And this one as well, you can verify. I'm not going to verify. I'm just going to leave it as it is. And then the next step, installing containerd. So the link is here. If you want to download or find out the latest item, you can click there. You'll see the latest item. If you want to install the latest version for containerd, all the release files are here. So if you click there on releases, you can find the latest versions, and you can replace those links with what I have here. I'm just going to use this. I'm not going to edit anything, but the links are there, right? So this is the version that I went with, the version that I'm using, 1.72. You can also go with the 1.6 versions. First thing, we're going to cd into the temp directory, and this is just something I do so that I don't dirtify my home directory, because once you download items, they will be there. I don't want to clean them later. I don't want to go through the process of cleaning them later. So I just do all these things in the temp directory. So when I restart, they will all disappear. Shift insert, that will put me in the temp directory. If you're using Intel or AMD, then the versions that you download from the place I've told you, from the link I've shown you on GitHub, the links that you put here will be dependent on your system. So if you're using an ARM processor, of course, you put the link for the ARM processor. I'm using AMD, so I'm going to go with that. Once that downloads, we download it down here, and then we'll extract it, and it will be extracted into that directory. So once it is extracted there, it's like installing it there. So I can start downloading it down here as well. Let me come here, and I'm going to extract it. Now we're just extracting the item that we've downloaded. Okay, you can see that is the item that was downloaded. So we're going to extract it into the user local directory. I'm going to do Control L to clear the screen. Paste, enter. So when you update, in case you're watching this in future and I have not updated this, make sure you update everything, including that. So you can see this corresponds to that. So make sure you update all the commands that follow. Here as well, Control L to clear the screen, Shift insert. Right, it has been extracted into this directory. So let's come back and see what's next. So this is like we've installed it, but we need to let systemd know how we can start it. So if you want to do something like system starters containerd or system restart, systemctl restart containerd, you have to create a service file for systemd. So that's what these two are doing, and you can find this as well on this link. So since I'm on Ubuntu, I'm going to go with the second one. Ubuntu Debian, go with the second option, or if this doesn't work, you go with this option, and the difference is just there. User local lib systemd. This one you can see is just user lib. It is not user lib local. So I'm going to go with the second one, since I know most Ubuntu and Debian usually don't use the local, don't usually use that. I'm just going to go with this. But you can, if this tells you that something doesn't exist, if you see an error, no such file or directory, that means that user local lib doesn't exist. So you come and use this one. If you use user lib and you see no such file or directory, use the first one. Shift insert, enter. Shift insert, enter. All right, so we can say containerd is installed, and if I come up here and I do Control L to clear the screen, and then I do, so you remember these things that I added here, sudo systemctl status reload. All right, so that's why I was adding this, because I don't want to type all that. So I can just do sys, that is for systemctl status, systemctl status container D. All right, you can see container D service is not enabled and it is inactive. We can start it here. So we can reload the system D daemon and then also enable container D at the same time. So I'm going to copy that, shift insert. All right, so now if I was to do sys again, sys container D, you'll see that now it's running. Control C to get out of that, Control L to clear the screen. Let's also enable container D on the worker node. So I'm just going to do shift insert, enter. Container D has been installed. There are other tutorials where you'll find you can install container D using the Docker repository, but I prefer to do it this way because this usually gives you the latest version. I don't know whether Docker updates it as frequently as you'll get it on GitHub, but I usually go with this for that reason. Now, installing runc, you have to install runc, and so let's install runc, and this I can just do in this one command here. I'll just copy the entire thing there. And of course, if you want to get the latest, you can always click there and you'll get the latest releases for all of this. All right, so if I was to click there, you can come here and get, if you click on something, you'll see the latest versions. If you come down here, there are releases down here. So AMD ARM64, you can get the links from down there. So I'm going to copy that and shift insert. So it's going to download it, and then once it downloads it, it's going to install it using this command. So this is commented out because it is for ARM64. If you're using an ARM processor, then you go with that. All right, so I'm going to paste that here. So just with that, it has installed runc. Now the next step is to install CNI. So this is for container networking. If you don't install this, you're going to have a problem with your network later on. We're going to install Calico, and if you don't install this, or this doesn't install properly, you're going to have a problem. Code DNS and all other networking items will not work. So first step, download for AMD64, and just with the above, I've added the links there. And of course, I need to do it on both nodes. So I'm going to do Control L to clear the screen there, shift insert, enter, download that here as well, Control L. All right, now I can download it down there as well on the worker node after downloading it. So if you're using an ARM processor, you can also download it, but make sure you get the right link, because you can see there is that separates ARM and AMD. AMD64, that is Intel and AMD. So extract it. We're going to create a directory. We're going to create this directory, and then inside of that directory, we're going to extract the file we've just downloaded. Copy, first of all, on the control node, Control L to clear the screen, shift insert to paste. There you go. And then Control L, shift insert, enter. Control L to clear the screen. Let's come back here, see what's next. All right, now we need to configure the C group driver for container D. So since we've installed container D manually, we're going to need to generate the configuration toml file, and no worry, everything is down here. So I found that this is just something, if you've installed this before and you're able to do it without switching to root, let me know how you did it, because I found that if I just did it without switching to root, there was a problem. So I had to switch to root first. And then after switching to root, we are going to create the configuration file, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Let's first of all come down here and switch to root, shift insert, switch to root, and you can see we are now the root user. Paste, enter. All right, so we are now root on both nodes. Now we need to generate the configuration file. Without this, we won't be able to edit this. It's going to make a directory. It's going to make a directory called etc containerd. This directory doesn't exist. We need to create it. And then the next step, we are going to create a file. And this is a configuration file. We're just going to create it. And then once we create it, we're going to generate default configurations for containerd in that. If you forget this step, your kubelet will never start. And then shift insert enter. Here as well, shift insert enter. Let's see the link for that. If I was to look at the content of that, just to make sure that it's been generated. So I'm just going to paste, and I can do cut, and you'll see the file has been generated successfully. So at this point, I want to make sure that everything is working well for you. So I'm going to switch out of the root user, exit. And down here as well, I'm going to switch out of the root user. If you want to continue using the root user, it's okay. But for me, I just want to make sure that the tutorial works for everybody, even if you're not using root. So that's why I'm switching out of the root user. So once I do that, I need to edit something on this file. And I need to change that from false to true. I need to edit this. Come back to the nodes. Shift insert. I want to change the value of this. System C group. So just copy it from there. I want to search for it and change its value to true. So I will copy and I'll come back. Here I'm going to do / and then shift insert, and you can see it has found it. So press enter, and then I want to go to the end of the line to edit it. So I'm going to do shift A, and that's going to put me in edit mode at the end of this line. Then I'm going to do true. I'm going to change it to true. And then there's something else I experienced here using kubeadm in it. There was something it was telling me that I need to change the version. So let me find that as well. So I'm going to search for that. So press escape to get out of edit mode, and then / again. And I want to search for sandbox. So that's not the one I want. So I'm just going to press enter, and then I'm going to press N to take me to the next result. And you can see sandbox image right there. That's the one that I need to edit. So I'm going to do shift A to go to the end of the line, and it was recommending that I use version 3.9. So I'm going to follow that advice and just change this version to 3.9. And then I'm going to escape, and I'll do shift ZZ. Shift ZZ will save it. So I'm going to copy that again, and then I will come down here and I'll do shift insert to paste, and I need to search for this. And I will search for shift insert, enter, shift A, go into insert mode, true. And here as well, I can change the other one. So I'm going to do escape and then / to search for sandbox, then enter. And I'm going to press N to find the next search result. And I'm going to do shift A to go to the end. And I want to edit this as well to 3.9. And then I'm going to escape, and I'm going to do shift ZZ to save. So that should be done with containerd. So let's go back and see what else. So we can apply the changes by restarting containerd. Copy. So even if you don't want to do this, you can just do sit SYT as I put it in my alias file. Shift insert, restart containerd, shift restart containerd, and just to make sure that it is running, you can do sys, that is system sudo systemctl status containerd. There we go, it's running. So Control C, Control L, clear the screen, Control L, clear the screen. I think we are done with installing containerd, which is the container runtime. So the next thing is to install kubeadm, kubelet, and kubectl. I'm just going to install kubectl on both of them, even though I will not use kubectl on the worker node, but you can just install it there. So this is another important part that I want to address. You can see I will be installing version 1.29, and currently the stable version is 1.30. If you're following along, you can install that, and then of course you're going to use this as a practicing example for updating your cluster. You can use 1.29 or you can update. And to update, it's all here. Just come in here, and this installing kubeadm, if you come down here, you'll find this, you'll find that, and under that you'll add the repository for version 1.30. So of course, if you're watching this maybe years later, it's 1.4 or 1.39, whenever you're watching, it doesn't matter. You can always come to that link and see the latest version, and if you want the latest, you can get the latest from there. And you can see this is going to install all the latest versions. So I'm going to install version 1.29. I don't really need to do sudo update. I can just do that to install this, but on Ubuntu, probably this already installed. Shift insert, tab, press OK. Then shift insert on the worker node to paste and install this. Enter this one as well, press tab, and then enter. Control L to clear the screen, Control L to clear the screen. Let's come down here again. I will copy that, shift insert, enter, shift insert, enter. Copy. So this is going to add the repository and install this, and then it's going to hold them. So to hold them simply means that they should not be updated. Shift insert, enter. Down here as well, shift insert, enter. So let kubeadm install. We are going to initiate our cluster. So as they're installing, I can just talk about this. So I'm going to copy that command, Control V. So kubeadm init. You can configure it however you need. If you search for kubeadm init, it's going to take you to a Kubernetes documentation that's going to show you the possible configurations that you can have for your cluster initially. The API server to advertise this is important because it's going to let your cluster know, all the other nodes will know the IP address for your cluster control, for your control plane. So API advertise address. So this is going to be the IP for your control plane. So I'm going to use my control plane here, 16, and then pod network. You can change it. You can use whichever network you want. I'm just going to leave it at that point. So I'm just going to do tab to finish this one as well. Click tab to go to OK, and then enter. All right. So you can see kubelet has been held back. kubeadm and kubectl as well have been held back. So they will not update with the system. If you update your system, they will not be updated. So Control L, you have to update them manually when updating Kubernetes. So now that our cluster, basically everything is ready for us to initialize our cluster. One thing I'd recommend that you do is just reboot your system, because you never know, maybe some things will require a reboot. So just reboot your system, and I'm going to reboot control node, sudo reboot. I can look at the status, how it is going. Even though I'm not using the VirtualBox interface, there I can still see something about what's going on in my server. So there I can see it's starting up. The moment I see an option to enter my username, then I can come in here and try to log in via SSH. And I can see now it's ready. I can try to log in via SSH, and I will enter my password. Copy. So make sure you change this IP to match your control node IP. My control node IP is not 16. It is 15, right? I can do IP A. Yeah, there. The inet, or not that one, but this one, 15, yes. So you can see I almost made a mistake there, but It's a good thing I saw it. So make sure you change your IP to match your control node's IP. Control L, and then I'm going to shift insert to paste. Shift insert to paste, and this is going to take some time. I can actually control C. I can actually pull in the items, the images that are needed with Cube ADM. I have not run Cube ADM in it here before, so this is going to take me a lot of time. So I can just do cube sudo cube ADM config, and I can't remember where to go next. So this is where Linux is very helpful. You can always do -h to find out what you need. So even though I don't need sudo, let me just continue with this. So cube ADM -h, so images. So of course it's something to do with images. So I know I can just do cube ADM images. All right. And after finding images, d-h, I can see that I can pull images. So let me pull the images. And this is going to take some time. And then after I do this, I can just do cube ADM init, and that's going to initialize my cluster much faster. So let's pull these images. All right, so you can see here, version is being taken. So it's going to pull the images for version 1.29 because that is a repository that I added, and that is a cube ADM version that I installed. So if you want to use version 1.3, the latest versions, always just go to the documentation and change it there. So this is going to take some time. It's going to pull all the items that I needed to make Kubernetes work. And once this is done, I can just run my command to initialize my cluster. The reason I'm doing this is because I want that to go much faster. After I pull the images, everything is going to be much faster. So I'm going to pause for a while, and I'll come back once all the images have been pulled. Okay, so you can see these are the items that were pulled. So this means that if I want to run cube init, it's going to go much faster because all these images are now available on the system. So I'm just going to do Control L to clear the screen, and then I can run my cube init command, copy, shift, insert, enter. And just like that, you can see the process was much faster because it didn't have to pull anything from the internet. Right, so let's set up kubectl, and you can just copy this wherever you want to run your kubectl, copy and paste that, shift insert, I'm going to paste that there. So now if I was to do kubectl get nodes, and you're going to see that we have our one control node there. Once we install the CNI, you're going to see that it will become ready. Right now, it's not ready, but as soon as we install that, it's going to be ready. So something else, let's do kubectl get nodes -o wide. And now you'll see that your internal IP has been recognized as the IP you added on your host name. If you don't add your IP on your host name, you're probably going to see the DHCP IP right there, the 10.10 IP. That's the one you're going to see there. So make sure you add your IP to the etc hosts file. If you don't do that, you won't have this. And this is going to affect various things in Kubernetes. So Control L, clear the screen. You can take note of kubeadm join. You can copy this and save it somewhere, or you can print it later. Before we join the worker node to our cluster, let's go ahead and install Calico. Of course, as usual, I've added the documentation link there. You can install the latest version. So just go with the latest version. If you have installed the latest Kubernetes, install the latest version from here, and you'll just use the operator. The operator automatically installs and manages Calico on its own. If you go with manifest, everything will have to be done manually in future. So go with the operator. The operator is going to install Calico and manage it for you. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going to go with this version. You can see this is 3.28. and here the version is 3.28, and here the version is 3.27, I mean. So I'm going to copy that. I will run this on my control node. Control L to clear the screen, shift insert, enter. Right, so that has set that up. And then let's get the configuration, the YAML file here, and I'm going to use the default one. If you want to customize it, you can open this file and edit it. But in my case, I'm just going to use the default there, copy, and then Control L, shift insert, enter. We can apply the file that we've downloaded right there. Right? So if you want to look at what's in the file, you can open Vim and look at it and even edit it. But in this case, I'm just going to apply it using the file we've downloaded right there. And then after that, we're going to do that. And this is just going to show us the pods that are currently being created as a result of this resource. So come there and I'm going to do shift insert. All right, so that has been created. Let us just confirm if everything is all right. If everything is all right, you're going to see that pods are getting created. Shift insert, and you can see these pods are now being created, and this is going to get created. It's going to take some time, maybe 2-3 minutes. And once everything becomes running, you can see that one is already running. Once all of them become running, we can join the worker node to the cluster. So just give it time to create this. Once everything is in a running state, we'll be ready to go and we can join the cluster. So you can list your current tokens, but forget about that. That's not very helpful. The one that's helpful is this one. So in case your token is expired, and usually it expires after 24 hours unless you manually create it and change this version and change this option. You can change that as well, the expiry date. So once it has expired, you can create it. And if one exists, like right now we have one that exists, it's just going to print that. The print join command is going to print the entire line that you need to join the cluster. So I'm going to copy this so that you can see an example. There we go. Everything is now running. So we can go to, I can just do Control C to get out of that. And now we can go to our worker node to join the cluster. So as I've said, you can print the join command using that. So let's come back here into the control node and let's also open the worker node down there. And of course, I restarted the server. Control L, that's our worker node. Let's come back to the control node and we want to print the join command. If you do that, it's going to print for you the join command, and you can just copy. You can just copy it. So remember here, it's not using sudo, but of course we need sudo. So I'm going to have to add sudo, shift, insert. If you're the root user, of course you don't need sudo. I'm going to need sudo. So I'm going to copy and then shift, insert, enter. Enter your user password, enter. And there you go. This node has joined the cluster. So we cannot run kubectl here, and that's because I've not added the initial configurations that I was given up there, and I don't want to add them here. I'll just use the control node for this. I'll do Control L on the control node to check all my nodes. So I'll do kubectl get nodes. And there you go. Our nodes are there. So it's not ready. Just give it time and it's going to be ready in a moment. Just give it a little bit of time. And then we want to confirm the IP addresses. So let's just do -o wide. And if you do that, you can see your IP addresses have been matched correctly to your control node. So you won't have any networking problems as a result of the internal IP using your DHCP server. That's pretty much it. Let's just see. I'm going to wait for a moment and then I'll come back and see if the node is ready. Once it is ready, we are going to once it is ready, we're going to deploy this. I'm going to deploy this on the worker node, and then we can verify that everything is working well. So let's check if it is ready. Okay, just give it time. All right, so the node is ready. So let me make a directory here, make dir tests, enter. I will go into that directory. And in here, I want to create a file. I'm just going to call it vi tests test.yaml, enter, and then I'm going to paste everything I've just copied from there. Shift, insert. So this is going to create a service and a deployment. Escape, and I'm just going to do Shift ZZ to save, and then I can do kubectl apply -f, apply that file, test t, just press on tab to autocomplete it, and then I'm going to press enter. So the service is created and the deployment is created. You can also see how the pods, you can also see the pods, if the pods are getting created, and you can see the deployment are creating, probably still pulling. Once they've pulled, we are going to test it. So we can test it by going to the IP. Just give it time. Okay, now they're running. You can test it by going to the IP. Since your containers will run on your worker node, of course, you need to test it with the IP of your worker node. That is where your containers, your pods are running. So I'm going to copy, paste. So this is just to test that the cluster is working. The IP for my worker node is .16, and the node port was 30,000. I'm just going to copy it from there. Copy, Control V, enter, and you can see Nginx is running. If we delete it, if we delete the deployment, we can come back here and just do. So I'll do Control C to get out of that, and then instead of doing kubectl apply, I'm going to do kubectl Control delete to delete, and I'm going to do delete. Kubectl delete that deployment and the service. And now if we come back to that and test it, you'll see that it's now not available. It is not accessible because the container has been destroyed. So that's pretty much it, how to install Kubernetes using kubeadm. So now if you want to practice, it's much easier to practice because you have the real thing, okay? Kubernetes using kubeadm. If you want to add more clusters, just follow the steps, and then you'll print the join command and add the node. Add the new node that you've created here. So you can use as many clusters, you can use as many nodes as you want to. This is your local machine. As long as you have enough RAM, you have enough CPU, you have enough storage, you can use as many nodes as you want to. That pretty much covers this tutorial. If there's any link you want me to add in the description and I forgot to add it, let me know. All right, that's it. Until next time. Hi and welcome. In this video, you're going to see how to reset your Kubernetes cluster, how to reset your kubeadm cluster. If I log into my control node, this is where I have kubectl set up. If I was to do kubectl get nodes, you can see all my nodes are there, they're healthy, they're working well. But I just want to show you how to reset your cluster in case something goes wrong and you need to reset it. Control L to clear the screen. So to reset the cluster, you just need kubeadm reset, and you're going to use sudo kubeadm reset. So I will first of all reset the control node. And then once I reset it, I'm going to initialize it again. So you can see it's asking me to confirm whether I want to reset it, and I'm just going to press yes, enter, give it a bit of time to delete everything it created. has been reset, and it's telling you that you need to remove the kube config file. I need to remove this file, but before I do so, I can just show you that now our cluster is not working. So if I do kubectl get nodes, you'll see the cluster is not reachable. So let me just delete the kube config file that I have there, and I can just do rm. I don't need sudo, Ctrl+Shift+V. And we're going to add it once we have initialized the cluster. So let me reinitialize the cluster once again. And even before I reinitialize the cluster, let me reset the worker nodes, the 2 worker nodes that I have. I will log into the first worker node. And then I'm going to reset this one as well. Sudo kubeadm reset. Type Y, enter. And then as this one is resetting, let me reset the other one as well. Ctrl+Shift+O. That will open a new tab here. I can log into the other worker node. All right, so now let's initialize our cluster. Okay, so I'm here on the control node, and that is the one that will act as our control plane for the cluster. So I need to initialize the cluster. And so I'll put the link in the description. This is just a post for installing a kubeadm cluster, and you can use VirtualBox for this, or VPS or Cloud VPS, it doesn't matter. So to initialize the cluster, I'm going to copy this and I will put it here, and then here put the IP address for your control node. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'll bring it back and run it here to initialize our cluster. While this is happening, the next thing you're going to need to do is to set up a CNI. And in this case, I'm going to use Calico. So if you want the latest Calico, just Google install Calico. Install Calico. And here on the Calico website, okay, here under install, just come down here and you need to install the operator. The operator will manage the Calico installation for you. That's why you need to go with this. If you go with manifest, you won't have the operator to help manage everything related to Calico. So under operator, we're just going to copy that to install the operator. So you can see the cluster is already set up, and you can copy that. You're going to need that. You're also going to need this as well as that. So I'm going to clear the screen, Ctrl+L to clear the screen. For installing Calico, I'm just going to do it inside of the temp directory, because if anything is downloaded, I want it to be automatically deleted when my computer reboots. So Ctrl+Shift+V. This is going to create the operator. Okay, so you see, I can't do anything until I enable kubectl kubeconfig. So copy this first, copy that, and I'll just do Ctrl+Shift+V to paste it. All right, now kubectl should work. And even if I do, and now if I was to do kubectl get nodes, I'm going to see I have one node, which is a control plane. So what I'm going to do next is just to install the operator for Calico. So when I run it this time, it should download it and set it up. And then the next step is to download the custom resource. And then the next step, we need to download the resource for configuring Calico. So I'm just going to copy, Ctrl+L, Ctrl+Shift+V. So this is going to download it. If you don't have curl, you might need to install curl by sudo apt install curl. And now that it's downloaded, we can use it to create the manifests related to Calico. So this is a file that has been downloaded, and we're going to use it to create that. Control Shift V, enter. And now Calico should be setting up, and we can check for the resources being created. We can watch the resources being created related to the Calico system. After waiting a while, all the Calico resources have been deployed. So I can just do Control C to get out of this. Control C. And now the next step is to join the other worker nodes. To join the other worker nodes, I'm going to need the join command, and I can copy it from there. Copy. So I'm just going to log into the worker nodes again. So once you're sure you've set up Calico, then you can join the other worker nodes. I'm going to do sudo the join command and then enter. So while this is happening, I can also log into worker 2. So I'm just going to do Control Shift O to open a new terminal here. And then I'm also going to use the join command on the second worker node. Sudo enter the join command. If I was to come back to the control plane, Control L to clear the screen, and I will do kubectl get nodes. And you can now see that our cluster is ready and we can test it. So I'm going to create a file here. Let me just call it n.yaml. Let me come back here. I can use this to test if our cluster is ready and working well. I'll paste the contents in there, and you see it will have 2 replicas. This is just an Nginx deployment as a sample. Shift ZZ to save, and then I will do kubectl. Kubectl apply the file. Deployment created. We can watch if the pods, let's watch as the pods get created. And once they've been created, we'll be able to check it on our browser. Watch kubectl get pods, and I can just do it without adding a namespace because this is going to get created in the default namespace. All right, so you can see both pods are running, so we can test it. If I go to the browser and I use IP for one of the worker nodes, I should be able to access it. There you go. So even the IP for the second worker node, I should be able to access it there as well, because I believe there's a pod running on that node as well. There we go. And if we come here, we can delete. I can delete the deployment. No resources found. If I log in, if I refresh the page, you'll see that our Nginx is now not showing. So that is how to reset your kubeadm cluster. That's it for this one. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. So I'll try to log into the server. So if you try to log in and you see this, it means that something has changed in the server. And in this case, this is because you reinstalled the server. So the keys have changed. So you have to delete them from your local computer for you to log in. So to do that, you just use SSH key gen -r and the IP address, and then enter. That's going to remove it from our computer, and then we can log in again. So Control L will clear the screen, and then I can try to log in again. So when you see this, accept by typing yes, and then enter the password for your server. There we go. So we are logged in. You can see we are logged in as root on this machine. So you can see there have been some failed login attempts. So the first thing, let me show you how you can generate the key and add it to your server. So for me to generate the SSH key, I need to do it on my local computer. I can open a new Git bash window, and then I'm going to generate the keys. So you need to know where you are putting the keys. The first thing you may want to do is to create a folder where you're going to store your SSH keys. So the SSH keys come in pairs. There's a public key and a private key. The private key is the one that you use to log in. The public key is the one we add to the server so that we can log in with the private key. So first, I will need to create a directory where I can keep my keys. To create a directory on Git bash or on Linux, I can do mkdir, and then I'll add -p, and I want to create it in my home directory .ssh. Inside of the .ssh directory, I will create another folder. Let me just call it contabo. This will create a directory called that inside of this directory, inside of this folder. So it's going to create that folder inside of that folder in my home directory. So if I press enter, the directory has been created. If you go to your home computer, if you go to your home directory right now, you're going to find inside of this directory, there is another one called contabo. So inside of this folder, so I'm just using directory or folder, it's the same thing. So inside of this folder, this is where I want to generate my SSH keys. To generate my SSH keys, I can just so I'm just going to copy, I don't want to type. So if you come to this post, and you can just go to blog, and you're going to see this post is there as one of the recent posts. So I'm going to generate my SSH key, and to generate the key, I've already created a directory. Now the next step is to generate the key. So I'm just going to use SSH keygen and I'm going to explain it. So I will come back to my local computer, the Git bash running on my local computer, and then I will paste that in there. I also need this. Let me copy that so I can just select it and click paste, and it's going to get pasted here. So SSH keygen will generate our key, and -t will generate a key of this type. -f, this is where you tell the system the name of your SSH key. We created this directory. Inside of this directory, I want to store my SSH keys. So I'm just going to call them SSH. Okay, that's for my SSH keys. You can name it whatever you want. And once I do that, I can just press enter. Oh, let's see what the mistake is. Control L to clear the screen. And I want to see, okay, so the mistake is I have this extra one here. So I'm just going to remove that there, and we can generate the key again. So when you're generating your key, you can add a passphrase. A passphrase is like a password for your key. If somebody else gets your private key, they will not be able to use it if they don't know the passphrase. So that's why it's important to add one. If you want to add one, you can add one. But I'm just going to press enter. And when you press enter, it means you will not add a passphrase. So I'll press enter again to generate the key. So if you go into your computer right now, inside of this folder, you're going to see there are two keys there. There's one called SHK and another one called SHK.pub. This is a public key that is added onto your server, and this is the one that you use for logging in after adding this one. Next time, if you're creating another SSH key, you can give it a different name and you'll find all of them inside of that folder. So you can just give your key a different name and they will be stored inside of that folder. All right, we've generated the key. The next step is to add the key to my server. So make sure you copy these two paths and you save them. So you can see up here, I was using this symbol. This symbol is called a tilde. Now the tilde symbol is the same as that, my home directory. So my entire home directory can be replaced with that. That's why I'm using that. So make sure you save the path of this and the path of that because you're going to need them. And every time you want to log in, you'll always need this one. So make sure you save it somewhere and you will be using it to log into your server. So the next step, let's add this key, the public key, into the server. So I'll come back here, add the public key to the server. To add it, we're going to use SSH copy ID and we're going to need the path to our public key. So I'm going to do SSH copy ID -I copy, and then I'm going to come back here where I've generated my keys on my local computer. Remember, I'm not logged into the server. I'm on my local computer. I'm going to paste SSH copy ID -I, and then here I stands for the identity of the key that we want to add to the server. So I'm going to copy the public key from up here, copy that, and then I'm going to paste it there. So now we have our public key. And remember what I said, this entire path for your home user, can be replaced with a tilde. Okay, so that's what that means. Just the home path to your home directory, home user directory. Once we have that, this is the identity of the key we want to add to our server. We need to tell the server, we need to tell SSH which user to add this key for. So we're going to add this key for the root user. And then we also need our IP address. So we're going to do @ and then tell the system which IP address they should use. So make sure you add the IP for your server. If you're adding the key for another user, you can do so. You'll just change the name of the user here. Maybe the user's name is now new user. You're adding the key for a new user called new user. You'll put new user there at your IP. All right, so I'm going to press enter. So it's going to try to add the key to my server. So you can see it is trying to see if there are any other keys that are installed. And if there's no other key that is similar to this key, it's going to try to add it. And that's when it's going to try to log in to add it. And that's when you're going to add your password. So just give it a moment and you can see now it's asking for your password because it's trying to add the key for the root user on this server. So enter the password there. So everything was added successfully. You can see it tells you that one key was added. That means that it was added successfully. So now you can log into your server using your SSH key. So I'm going to do Control L to clear the screen. The login command is simply SSH and then the user, which is root, the IP address of your server, and then the location of your private key. You can see here there's a mistake. This is supposed to be the private key and the private key doesn't have .pub. So I'm going to rectify that, but just remember the private key that you log in with doesn't have .pub. That's a mistake. Now, if I come back, I can log into my server. If I just do the up arrow to get the last command, you can see I already have everything I need here to log in. The user for my server is that, and the key I want to use is that. Of course, I'll have to delete .pub, and then here I'm just going to change this to SSH. So I'm going to come up to here and I will delete .pub because now to log in, you need the private key. The private key is a one that doesn't have .pub. So I'm going to delete that, delete this. We need SSH, identity of the key. So you can see here in this example, I'm the root, the user and the IP is there. And the identity of my key is in the last bit. There's no problem with this. SSH is going to know how to arrange them to enable you to log in. Okay, so SSH is going to know that this is the private key that we need to log in, and this is a user we need to log in with, and this is the IP that you need to use to log in. So if I press enter now, I should be able to log into my server. There you go. Now you're logged into your Contabo server. All right. So once you log in with your SSH key, the first thing you're going to realize is that there have been some failed attempts on your server. If your password is weak, at some point, they will be able to log in. So you need to secure yourself, and the way to secure your Contabo server in this case is to disable password authentication. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'll do Control L to clear the screen, and I want to disable password authentication. So to do that, I'm going to use Nano. Nano is an editor you can use on Linux, and Vim is also an editor you can use on Linux. So in this case, I'm going to use Nano to edit my SSH configuration file. That is where we need to disable password authentication. So I'm going to do Nano. Since I'm the root user, I don't need to use sudo. If you're adding this and you have a user that has admin privileges on Linux, you can create a user with admin privileges, and this user can run administrative commands using the sudo command, right? But since I'm the root user, I don't have to use sudo. I'm just going to do Nano. We need to edit this file, etc ssh sshd config. I'm going to edit this file. I'll just press enter. So Nano is not found. This means that it has not been installed in the system. So I need to install it. I can first of all update the system before I install Nano. Apt, not apt, but DNF update -y. So this is going to update the system. And then after that, I can install Nano. So I can also just add it as one command here. So when you see this, this is used to join two Linux commands. So I'm just going to do DNF install Nano, and I can do -y and then press enter. So this is going to do two things. First, it's going to update my system, and then it's going to install Nano after the updates are complete. So press enter to continue. All right, that is done, and you can see there Nano has been installed. So I'm going to do Control L to clear the screen, and I'll press the up arrow to get to this command. So you can use the up arrow to find the last commands that you ran. So I'm going to press enter to edit this file again. So if you just scroll down looking for password authentication. I can search for it, but let me just scroll down because I don't want to complicate things. All right, so here we have password authentication. So you need to uncomment this. Here, we need to change the yes to no. Change, delete yes, and make it no. And once you do this, and you save this file, no one will be able to log in with a password. They will only be able to log in with the SSH key. So make sure you save the path to your SSH key. If you need to log in, that's how you're going to log into your server. I want to save, and to save, I can just do Control X. Control X it's like exiting out of Nano. So it's going to confirm whether I want to save the changes I've made, and then I'm just going to press Y. And then I'm going to press enter. So now if I open the file again and check, we're going to see that the change we've made is still there. Password authentication is still there. So I'm just going to do Control X to exit out of Nano. And since there are no changes that were made, it's going to exit me out of Nano directly. And then the next thing, of course, we need to restart SSH to make sure that we need to reload or restart SSH to ensure that the new configuration file we've edited is being used instead of the old one. So I'm just going to do system ctl, and I want to reload it, reload sshd, and then I'm going to enter. So after doing this, no one should be able to log into this server using a password. So let me open a new Git bash window and we're going to experiment. So I'm here on a new Git bash window. Let me just see if I can log in with a password. So if I do this command that allows me to log in with a password, will I log in? I'm going to press enter. And you can see permission denied, public key. This means that I cannot log in with a password. I need a public key. I need an SSH key to log in. So to log in with our SSH key, we'll just copy the command that we used up here. The command that I used to log in. Okay, this is the one. So make sure you copy this and save it somewhere because you will use it a lot. If you want to log in, you can just copy this and run it, and this is going to log you into your server. And just as a reminder, this is the identity of your private key, your user, and your IP. So let's go and log in. And then of course in Git bash you can paste using shift insert. So I'll press shift insert, enter. There you go. Now your server is set up to only log in with the SSH key. So even if somebody tries to log in with a password, they will not be able to log in. Okay, so that is done. And in this video, you've seen how you can generate an SSH key, add it to your Contabo server, and then log in with the SSH key you've generated. Let's just go through the steps one last time. Okay, so let's go through the steps once again. So to generate the SSH key, create a directory. You can call your directory whatever you want, but just make sure it is inside of this folder. So create that folder, give it any name you want, and then you can generate your keys and they will be stored inside of the directory that you've just created, and then they will use the name that you decide to give them. So this is a comment. I didn't use it, but it's just a comment. It can tell you what the keys are for. You can add your email. You can say these keys are for DigitalOcean, these keys are for Contabo. It's just a comment. You can leave it out. It is not a must. And then add the public SSH key to your server. So once you generate the key, copy the link of the public key, and the public key is the one that has .pub, and then use SSH copy ID to copy that key to your server and copy it for the user you want it for and the IP address for the server. And then after that, log in with the private key. So what you should note here is that the private key doesn't have .pub. So don't log in with .pub, remove .pub and log in with the other key. And then after that, log into your server and then edit the SSH configuration file. Change password authentication from yes to no. If it is commented, it will have £sign in front of it. Remove that. And then make sure at the end, just make sure that it looks like that with no. And this is going to prevent logging in with a password. And then restart SSH. So restart SSH, of course, you're using Rocky Linux. I was using Rocky Linux. So that's the one you use. For Rocky Linux, restart SSHD. If you are using Ubuntu, then SSH. But in this case, you will use SSHD if you're on Rocky Linux. And that's it. Just test to make sure that people cannot log in with a password. And to test that, you can just do SSH. You can just do SSH user and the IP to see if they can log in. If you're able to log in, then make sure that you've done everything right. If not, just feel free to reach out. But in the end, you should get an error, permission denied, public key. And then after that, everything will have been configured as is needed. So that's it for this video. That's what you needed to do to set up SSH for your Contabo server. If you have any questions, just let me know. Let's see how to change the desktop background on Fedora. So to change the background image on Fedora, the easiest way to do it is figure out the image you want to use. You can go find the image that you want to use. For example, let's say that this is the image that I want to use. I can right click and then set as wallpaper. You may need to change various settings for the image. So you can see the background there, it's a little zoomed in. You can change various settings for the image. So let's see how we can do that. I'm just going to right click on the desktop and then I will click on desktop settings. So here you can also select different images. If you want to use another image other than that, you can select an image there. For instance, if I want to use that, I can select that, but I'm just going to click on the image that I want to use because it serves well for the purposes of this video. Let's say, for example, you want to make the full image visible. You can change the style of the image right there. So right now it is zoomed. If you scale it, you'll see that the image will look like that. Maybe you make it tiled. You're going to have a tiled image. You can make it centered. And also, if you want the desktop background to be blank, you can just come in here and click on none, and that's going to remove the image. You can also make the image automatically transition. Maybe you want it to transition after every minute, right there. And you can make it transition in random order. But of course, you're going to have to choose an image there. So let's say, for example, we change the style back to tiled, and you can wait for some time for the image to change, and it's going to change in that folder. So the folder that is there, that's the one it's going to use to auto change it. You can select a different folder. So let me just wait for a minute and see if it's going to actually change the image automatically. There you go. You can see after a minute, the image was changed to the next image right there. That's how you can change the background image on your Fedora desktop. And this is XFCE. So that is also important. XFCE desktop, XFCE Fedora. All right, that's it for this video. Until next time. Hi and welcome to the. In this video, I will show you how to install Nginx on Ubuntu server or Debian server. Search for install Nginx. I'll just click there on installing Nginx. So when you're here, you can install on Linux. Let's go to packages and then choose your Linux distro. I will go with Ubuntu, but this will work on Ubuntu or Debian. So I will create a TXT file, and the purpose for the TXT file is to copy all these commands there. Then I'll just paste them on Ubuntu at once. So I'm just going to copy this. And then the next one, you can verify or you can skip that. In my case, I'm just going to skip this, but make sure you verify that this is what it's going to be output for you. I'm going to set the apt repository for mainline. Nginx has two major versions, that is the stable version and the mainline version. The mainline version has the most recent features and also may have newer bugs and may also have a few experimental features that are not available on stable. If you're running any Nginx third-party packages, it's always a good idea to stick with Nginx stable. If you're not running any third-party Nginx packages, then you should just stick with mainline. And you can use mainline in production. It's not like using mainline in production is prohibited. No, you can use mainline in production because it has the most recent features. It is frequently updated. I'm going to go with the mainline version. Control V, and then eventually we're going to pin the repository so that it's preferred over the Ubuntu packages. You will update the Ubuntu repository, the Ubuntu cache, and then install Nginx. I'm just putting everything in one file. This way I can just Control A everything and then run it on my Ubuntu server. So Control L, clear the screen, Control Shift V on the terminal, Control-Shift-V. So if you're on Windows, you're following along on Windows, you can, if you're logged into your server, just log in using Git bash and you can still follow along without any problems. So I'll press enter. Enter password. So just give it time. Accept that. Just press enter. There you go. Nginx is now installed on your server. This is a VirtualBox machine. So if I was to access this on my main computer here, I should be able to see the Nginx welcome page 5.22. Okay, that's because Nginx is not started. At least this is a good thing. So at least I can confirm that Nginx will be working. So if I was to check if Nginx is actually running, I can do sudo systemctl status Nginx. So you can see it is not running. We can just start Nginx. System start Nginx, start Nginx. And now if you were to do status again, you'll see now it's running. So if you come back here to test, there we go. Nginx is now running. You can deploy whatever applications you want to deploy with your Nginx server. So on Ubuntu, if you want to customize your Nginx, you'll find the configuration files under, let me just do ls. Does sudo work with ls? I think so. etc/nginx tab. If you look inside there, you're going to see confd. So on Ubuntu, your configuration will be inside there. So let's say you want to create a new website. You can just create the new website inside there. For example, sudo vi, create the file inside there, google.com. You can create the configuration like that, and then add your configuration inside here and save the file. Right, so I'm not going to go through this step. And then of course, once you do this, you reload Nginx. I'm going to close this by doing Q. And once you've set up your configuration for one of your website properties, you can just do sudo nginx-t to test if your configurations are okay. If you receive any error, rectify your configuration. And then if the configuration is okay, you can restart, reload Nginx, and you will be able to access whatever property you've configured there. All right, so that's how to install Nginx on Ubuntu or Debian server. See you next time. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. You can quickly install IonCube Loader on HSTCP. So to do that, just go to hstcp.com. You want to go to the documentation, click there on documentation, and just scroll all the way down. And down here under community, you're going to see IonCube installer for Hestia. And this can install IonCube for all your PHP versions. So just click there. Every time you enable a PHP version, you can just come in here and run the script and it will install IonCube Loader for that PHP version. Or it can do so for all PHP versions that are currently active on your Hestia install. Shift Control V. You don't have to run this as the root user. You can simply come in here and add sudo. Here as well, you can add sudo if you're not the root user, and then just run that. And now IonCube is enabled for PHP 8.2. So if I come back here and I refresh, there you go. IonCube Loader is now working. That's it for this one. If you have any question, let me know. Hi there and welcome to this video. Did you know that Valtra also has a free tier? And you can get a free virtual server. How can you get a free VPS server from Valtra? Valtra has a free tier program. So if you come here under account and you scroll down into free tier program, you can see if you're eligible. So your eligibility will be shown there for you. So the program requires that you have a credit card set up, not PayPal, not crypto. A credit card needs to be set up. Once you set up a credit card in your billing section, you'll see a tick like that. You also need to have two-factor authentication enabled on your account, and that can be done under account settings. And then these are additional features: billing address, maybe your business website URL. And these are details that you can set under personal information on your profile. So just click there and you can set these settings. But most importantly, you need to have a credit card and two-factor authentication. And once these two are green, you can click there to request early access. Once you're allowed to access the free tier, basically creating free virtual machines, let me show you how you can create your free virtual server on Vultr. So to create your product, you don't have to go back, but let's just go back to products. I'll click there on products and I will click on deploy and deploy new server. So the free Vultr servers can be found here under shared CPU. I believe the free servers can be found in Miami, Seattle, and Frankfurt, Deutschland. The free server falls under cloud compute. So these are the older servers, the older generation servers, and you can get a 1 vCPU server and 0.5 GB memory. So one virtual CPU, 0.5 GB of memory, and you can see there it's free. Go next. Let's configure to go next. The locations with these servers are here. So if you click configure and nothing happens, just come up here and change the location to one of these, the location for the data center. So I'm going to choose Frankfurt and configure. And I always recommend Debian, so I'll go with Debian 12. And you can add your SSH key if you've already set it up. Startup script, firewall group, I don't need those for now. So add your server host name right there. IPv4, of course, nowadays IPv6 is also available for free. You can use that. And that's pretty much it. So of course, I'm not eligible for the free tier. Therefore, my server cannot be provisioned. And if I click on deploy, it's going to try to create the server, but you can see server add failed. Access to the free tier product has not been approved for your account. So you have to request access where I showed you. Once you get access to the server, you can log in, and to log into a server, you can just do SSH. And the user is probably root. Shift at your IP, whichever IP you have there. And once you enter, you're going to get requested for a password, and the password will be available on your Vultr account. Just click on your virtual machine and then copy the password from there. If you're interested, you can continue on deploying your production applications on Vultr. So that's it. Until next time. In this video, I will show you how to add an SSH key to your server. If your server is currently using a password and you want to change that so that you can use an SSH key, I will show you how to do it. So if you're on Windows, download and install Git and follow along with Git Bash. Mac or Linux, just use the normal terminal. So the first step, we're going to generate an SSH key, and then we're going to add the SSH key to our server, and then we're going to test if we can log in with it. So generate the SSH key is just SSH keygen, and then I want to choose a type of key, so -t, and I'm going to use ED25519 key, and then I want to give the file a name. And the benefit of giving the file a name is because you can generate multiple keys in future and use them on different servers without having to override any of your keys. So -f will just define a file name, and we want to store it inside of the SSH directory. So that's my home folder. If you see this is just my home folder. And then inside of my home folder, there's a folder called SSH. And then inside of the SSH folder, there's a folder called tutorials that I want to use. And then inside of that directory, that is where I'm going to generate my SSH key. That is where I'm going to generate my SSH keys. So I'll just call them DO. keys. And that just stands for DigitalOcean keys. You can name them something you can recognize. And another thing that can help you recognize your keys in future is just add a comment. So I will add a comment here, and I can just say keys for DO. But you can use this with any VPS. I'm just using DigitalOcean as an example. So once you do this, confirm the name of your keys, the location where you want your keys, and then you can generate the keys. I'll just press enter to generate. And you can also add a passphrase, and a passphrase is important because it protects your key. If somebody else gets your key, they can use your key, but without the passphrase, they won't be able to use it directly. So I'm going to add a passphrase. If you're going to log in manually, add the passphrase. Confirm the passphrase, enter. All right, my key is generated. The next step is to add it to my server. So to add it to my server, I'll just do Control L to clear the screen, and then I will do SSH copy ID. So SSH copy ID will help us to copy the public key to the server. If you don't know how these commands are going to follow each other, which one comes first, you can do SSH copy ID -H, and it's going to show you this. So you can see there, the SSH copy ID will come first. Any directives you want to give this command will come there, and then you'll put in the identity of the file, and then if you're using a different port, you'll put the port number, and then finally the username and the IP address of your server. So I just wanted to show you this in case you don't want to copy from somewhere. You can actually just get these commands here directly from the help text. So I'm going to close that, and I want to do SSH copy ID. The first thing, let's give it the identity of the file, and the identity of the file is a file we've just created. If you scroll back up, you're going to see the links to your public key and the link to your private key. So all of it is there. You can copy these links and save them somewhere if you don't know how to get back to them. So I'll copy the public key. That's the one that I need to add on my server. Shift insert to paste in Git bash. Then the user is root at my IP. Let's come back here, copy my IP, paste. This is going to add this key to our server. So I'm going to press enter, but you need to be ready with your password because at some point you're going to enter your user password. So .pub is the one you're adding to the key. Make sure you're not adding the other one, which is the private key. So add the .pub key, and then I'm going to press enter. So it's going to confirm whether the key is already added to my server or not. If it is not added, it's going to add it. Let me copy my root password. Are you sure you want to continue connecting? So this is because this is the first time I'm actually connecting to the server. I have not connected to it, so that's why it's asking for the fingerprint. So when you see this, just type yes. If you've already connected to this server before you've logged into this server, then you're not going to see this message. And that is a message about the fingerprint. So I'm going to enter. So as this is happening, something else I want to add is that your user is what you'll use here. In this case, I'm adding it for root. That's why I'm using the root user. If there's another user that you're adding the key for, that is a user that you're going to use instead of using the root user. So down here, we're being asked for the password. I'm just going to paste in my password, press enter. And this is a password for your server user. So let's see, copy. There we go. The key has been added. Now the next step, of course, is to log in with the key. And I'm just going to go ahead and log in with the key. So I'll do Control L to clear the screen. And I'm just going to press the up arrow. I don't want to type again. I'm just going to remove that. So to log in, I can log in with the private key. The private key doesn't have .pub. And here as well, I'm just going to remove copy ID. So I can SSH with the identity of my key, and that is the user. And if there was a port, you can add the port number there after. So I'm just going to press enter, and this should be logging us in with our private key. Since I added a passphrase, I'm going to need to enter my passphrase. Make sure you can remember the passphrase. All right, I'm logged into my server. I can see the updates I can do, so I can just update those. And since this is Ubuntu, I can do apt update. So I can upgrade the updates, apt upgrade, enter. Press tab to go to OK and then just press enter. Right, I'll press Ctrl L again to clear the screen. Now the next thing, since you have set up an SSH key for your server, you can disable password authentication. So to do that, you can just do vi etc ssh/sshd conf tab to autocomplete it. Here I want to find password authentication and disable it. So to log into this server, you're going to need to log in with an SSH key. Since I'm using Vim, I can just / and then search for password authentication, and I can see it's set to yes, but it's commented out, so I can press enter, and I'm just going to press N to see if there's another occurrence of password authentication, because usually you'll find that there may be another occurrence of password authentication whereby it is allowing or disabling password authentication. Okay, so there's no other occurrence of password authentication, so I'm going to use this one, and I can first of all delete the comment that is the hash in front of it. I can go into insert mode, and I'll just press I to go into insert mode, delete that, and then we want to make this no. So this means that logging in with the password is forbidden. So I'm going to escape, and then Shift ZZ to save. And then I'm going to restart SSH, systemctl reload SSH. Let me open another tab and try to log in with the password. So opening another instance of gitbash, and then I will try to log in SSH. I'll try to log in with the password. Enter. Okay. Let's see if I can log in. This is actually a good thing. If it allows me to log in, it's going to give me an opportunity to teach you something here. Okay, so you can see I'm able to log in with my password. So what do you think that means? That means that DigitalOcean has another SSH configuration file that they use. Instead of the default one, there's another one that they use. So let's confirm if that's true. I'm just going to do ls/etc/ssh/sshd tab to autocomplete, and then it's a directory sshd configuration. So you can see there are two files inside here, and this means that one of the files is overriding my changes. So what I can do is to look into these files to see what we have. So I'm going to do vi. I'm assuming it's the first one. Based on past experience, it's the first one. So I'm just going to do 50 and then tab to autocomplete it. I want to see what's inside of this file. And you can see password authentication is set to yes. So I need to set this to no if I want to disable password authentication. So I can do Shift A to edit this. And that is no. Escape, and then Shift ZZ to save. And if I reload SSH, I can just do this time round service SSH restart. All right, so now if I was to try and log in with a password, let me open a new gitbash window, and I will try to log in with the password SSH root shift at paste enter. And now you can see permission denied, public key. This means that if you ever see this, it means that you can only log in with an SSH key. And if for any reason you need to log in with your password, you have to log in with the key and then disable password authentication. So that's the case if perhaps you're using SFTP and you need to log in without a key, then you'll have to disable password authentication. It's important to note that in as much as most configurations for SSH are usually placed here, cloud providers nowadays are creating their own file. And in this file, they add configuration files that will override everything in that file. So you have to go into this directory to confirm if there's another file that is probably overriding your SSH configuration and make changes in that file, or you can create your own file. If there is no file there, you can create your own file and then use that instead. All right, that's it for this one. You've seen how you can add an SSH key to your VPS. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. In this video, let's see how to delete an Azure resource group. So I'll go to all my resources, just click there, go to all resource groups. And then for the resource group that you want to delete, just click on the resource group. Up here, you're going to see delete resource group. So click on it. And you're going to need the name for the resource group. Type it down there, paste it down there, and then you can delete the resource group. That's it. Hi there and welcome to this video. In this video, you're going to see how you can transfer your domain from Cloudflare to Unstoppable Domains. You might want to transfer your domain to Unstoppable Domains if perhaps you want to use it as the link for your crypto wallet. So that's one of the features you'll get on Unstoppable Domains. So first thing, just create your account on Unstoppable Domains. If you don't have an account, click there to sign up. And you can sign up with all these accounts, Google, X, or your email. I already have an account. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back where I'm logged in. And here on the menu, you can click on transfer. So you have to start the transfer on Unstoppable Domain. So I'll come back to Cloudflare, go to domain registration, and then manage domains. So I can transfer one of these domains as a sample. I will transfer this as an illustration in this video. So I'm going to copy, come back here, paste, and then we need the EPP code. So I'm going to go back to Cloudflare. I'm going to go back to Cloudflare and then come back to manage the domain. I will click on configuration. You can see Cloudflare has one of the best domain management interfaces, very easy to work with. So move to another, I see they added this. So transfer to another registrar. Unlock, confirm and unlock, copy, let's come back, put the code, continue. So the reason I'm transferring the domain is that the domain is almost expiring. Cloudflare is a good registrar. I have never had any problems with my domains on Cloudflare. So I'm just transferring because right now I'd rather pay that to transfer the domain than pay the renewal price because I'm not using the domain. Once you add the code, just click there, discount transfer promotion, and then validate and go to cart. So at this point, you can continue on to checkout. And you can pay with card, PayPal, crypto.com, whichever means you want to pay, go ahead and pay. When the domain renews, it's going to renew at $11. For now, make your payment. All right, there, your domain is now paid for. Now that the domain is paid for, and I'm assuming you're already logged in, since that's the first thing I told you to do, to sign up and log in, your domain is now under your My Domains. You'll receive an email from Cloudflare that the domain transfer request has been made. And on this end, all you have to do is just wait, but you can speed up the domain transfer by just going to Cloudflare, and on the same page, I'm just going to refresh, and you'll see here there is a button accept transfer. You can accept the transfer. This is going to approve the transfer to Unstoppable Domains. Wait for the transfer to complete and the domain will be ready for you to manage on this end. So right now you can see I can't do anything with the domain, but give it like 20 minutes and when you come back, you'll be able to manage the DNS. Like for this one, it's already active here. So if I click on action, I can edit the name servers. All right. So just give this one time to activate. And also if you want to connect it to your wallet, once the domain is active, you can do so. You can click on it. So for this, just give it time to finish, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it's going to be ready. And you can manage it on Unstoppable Domains. For now, the domain has been migrated from Cloudflare. That's it. Somebody asked me, which is the best screen recorder for Linux? So I'm here on Fedora. To me, the one that I've used that never gives me any problems is Simple Screen Recorder. If you're on Fedora as well or any Red Hat related Linux distros, you can install Simple Screen Recorder. So let's first of all see how to install it. It's already installed. That's what I'm using right now. So if you want to search if it is available in your distro, you can do DNF search Simple Screen Recorder. DNF search Simple Screen Recorder. Okay, so if you see this, it means that it's available for you and you can just install it by doing DNF install. I'll do Control L to clear the screen. I'll do DNF install Simple Screen Recorder. Of course, I need to use sudo. So if I do that, it's going to run the command and I can enter my user password. All right, so nothing to do. Package is already installed. That is if you are on RHEL related distros. If you're on Debian related distros, you can do apt search. You can actually, it is there. I'm sure it is available in the Debian repository, Ubuntu repository. So if you're in those distros, you can do sudo apt install Simple Screen Recorder. Of course, that's not going to work here, but that's how you can install it on Debian, Ubuntu, any Debian based distro. Once it is installed, to use it, simply open it. Of course, you're going to see Simple Screen Recorder recording itself. I'm using XFCE desktop. So to find it, it will be under Multimedia, Simple Screen Recorder. And this is the interface it's going to show you. And then you can continue. And here you can create a profile. Profiles are just different settings that you want to record in. Maybe in some situations you want to record in 4K. And maybe in some situations you may want to record in 1080p. That's what the profile is for. Maybe you want to use a different microphone. That's what this is for. So you can create a new profile. I'll just give it a name, tutorial. Okay. As for the backend, I'm going to leave the default one, which is X11. So you can also see when you hover over anything and then you wait for a few seconds, it's going to give you some explanations for everything. Okay, so recording, you need to decide, do you want to record the entire screen or do you want to record certain elements? So for instance, in this case, you can record the entire screen. If you have multiple screens, you'll choose the screen there that you want to record. In this case, I have one screen. That's the one that will be recorded. Record a fixed rectangle. You can just draw where you want to record, right? But in most cases, you're probably going to want to record the entire screen. And sometimes you just want to follow the cursor, and that will record the entire screen with the cursor. So where the cursor goes, that's where it will go. But mostly, as I've said, you probably will end up recording the entire screen. And then the frame rate, you can say you want to record 60. If you want to record 120, you can record 120 FPS. Of course, the more the FPS, the higher the CPU usage. Higher frame rates use more CPU time. So you can scale the video. You can see here we are recording the screen at 1080p. But if I wanted to scale it down so that the final video will be 480p, that's something I can do. And then of course you want to record the cursor. Audio input, this is the most important part of your recording session. You will need to, first of all, figure out which microphone you want to use. So the backend, you'll just use the default one. In this case, Pulse Audio is the default. And last time I used Ubuntu, I saw Pulse Audio was also the default. Whichever one is the default one, just use that. Don't change that setting. And then the source, this is a microphone that you're going to use. In my case, you can see I have these microphones, but this is the one I have selected to use. So before you record, of course, you're going to, first of all, you're going to do a test recording to make sure that your audio is working. Always do a test recording to make sure that the audio is working, to see if the mic is working, and you're going to see that in a moment. Before I leave this page, so I'm on XFCE. If you're using GNOME desktop, on GNOME, there's a setting for audio. Go to your setting for audio. Make sure the microphone you've selected here is the one that is being used as a default. In my case, on XFCE, I can check that right here. So if I click on this, you can see that down here, the microphone that I'm using here is the same microphone that is being selected here as the default. And that's what you want to do. Make sure on your settings, on your audio settings, you choose the right microphone. Click continue. The next item here is where you want to save the file. You can browse. You can choose a folder where you want to store your recordings. You want to store the recordings. So I can select that and then save. And then separate file per segment. You can add a timestamp. This is important. It helps you to know which was the last recording. So of course you don't want this separate file per segment. This happens if, for example, I come here, the current audio that I'm recording, I can pause it. And once I pause it, and then the next time I resume the recording will be in a different file. So I don't want to separate the files like that. So leave this unchecked unless that is something you want. The container for your video. So do you want the output video to be MKV, MP4, or any of these? You can choose which one of these you want. H264, that is very universal. So that's the one I leave checked. Constant rate factor. This, the default is usually 23. You can just leave it at that. Preset, the higher the preset, the less CPU it's going to use, but the files will be a bit larger. And they say that the quality is not affected much by this setting. So you can try whichever one you want. This is just an issue of you trying and testing to figure out the best option for you. And then allow frame skipping. I usually leave this checked because if you don't leave it checked, it consumes a bit more CPU. So definitely check that. And then the audio codec, you can use whichever audio codec you want here. They recommend Vobis as a default and MP3. Bitrate in kilobytes per second. Of course, if you want your audio quality to be better, you can do it. You can raise this. Usually, I think it comes with the default of 128, but you can raise this. If you wanted, you can even go 320 kilobits per second, but I like to leave it there at 256. So sound quality, you can just use what I'm using here if you're not sure. And after that, you can click continue and you can start recording. So let's say I want to do a test recording. I can just click there and start recording. This is a test recording to make sure that my audio is working. And then once you do that recording, you're just going to click there on save recording. If you don't want to save it, you can cancel recording and confirm that you want to cancel. So I'm just going to save recording. Then I can open the file and it will be stored in the location that I set, and I can try to play it. Let me play it with VLC. There we go. The audio is working. Everything is working. That's how to use simple screen recorder. It doesn't record your webcam by default. So to record your webcam, you are going to need a second webcam software, and maybe put your webcam somewhere in that corner and record whatever you need to record. But before I end, let's see what we have up here. So whenever you're recording, it will turn red, and you can pause a recording. You can cancel the current recording. You can also hide the window. So if you come to the recording that I'm currently doing, you'll see that the total time is 16 minutes. The FPS is that, and the current file size is that. And you can also preview whatever you're doing if you start to preview. All right, that should end this video. If you need a simple recorder, a simple screen recorder to record what you're doing on your desktop, maybe you're doing demonstrations, software demos, illustrations, you can use simple screen recorder, and this is how to use it. That's it for this one. Until next time. Hi there and welcome to this video. In this video, I want to tell you about some cheap storage VPS options that you can use. If you need storage for your VPS, there are certain providers that provide storage VPSs. Let's just get into it straight away. So number one, of course, is Contabo. Contabo is one of the cheapest VPS providers. And if you want to see their storage VPSs, you're going to come here under VPS and then go to storage VPS. At least they use SSD for the storage, and that's a good thing. To see the prices, just scroll down here and you're going to see for 600 GB SSD. Please take note of SSD. So these are very affordable for SSD storage. If you need more storage, you'll have to jump to this one. And this is 16 euros for 1.8 terabyte SSD storage. So considering this is an SSD, you can actually run your website on that, and you probably won't notice any reduction in performance. Those are the prices for that. Number one, as I've said, is Contabo, and I've used Contabo before, so that's why they're on this list. And then number two, I came across Interserver. So I haven't used their storage VPS, but if you want to see the price for the storage VPS, come here under Cloud VPS and then go to storage. So they're not SSD like Contabo, but these are the prices for that. So for $3, you get 1 TB HDD SATA. So all of them run on HDD. So that's the only difference between this and the other one. The speed, 10 gigabits per second. Contabo, 200 megabits per second port. All right, so there is the difference for you. So these are the two that I found that were straight VPSs with storage VPS, that is Contabo and Interserver. So other options, what you can do is you can get a VPS. For example, on Vultr, you can get a VPS, and let's look at the pricing for VPSs. So if you want to come here on this page, just click on pricing on the Vultr website, and then you can choose any regular performance VPSs. Let's say, for example, you want to go with that. So that will be $350, or you want one virtual CPU and 1 GB. That will be $5 per month. And once you get that, you can add a block storage. So let's look at the pricing for block storage. So if I click there on block storage, you're going to see they also have HDD block storage and NVMe block storage. So for the HDD block storage, $1 will give you 40 GB. For the NVMe ones, $1 will give you 10 GB. So depending on what you want to run, you can choose either of these options and attach it to your VPS. So that's one option. Valtra has block storage that can be attached. DigitalOcean also has block storage that can be attached. Once you get your VPS, you can attach a volume block storage. For 100 GB, you get for $10 a month, you'll get 100 GB. So I believe these are NVMe as well, but you'd have to confirm with the documentation. But I don't think they would be charging this much for HDD. So it's probably NVMe. I'll put the links in the description. You can get $200 free credit of DigitalOcean if you want to use them, and Valtra as well. I will provide a link for $300 of free credit if you want to use them. Another cloud option that you can also use with an additional volume or block storage is Hetzner. So once you get your VPS server on Hetzner, and you can go there under servers, get your server, you can go to volumes, create a volume. So let's say I decide to create a volume. So 0.44, you'll get 10 GB. So this means that if you were to get like 1000 GB, that's going to be 44 euros per month, and that's going to give you roughly 1 TB. So something I read somewhere, and you'd have to confirm this, but I think it was in the documentation, that the volumes for Hetzner have a triple redundancy. This means that if you buy the 1 GB, it's like buying 3 GB because it will be replicated across 3 disks. That's something you also have to bear in mind. And this also NVMe, the very fast storage. You can use them on a live server, on a live website without any reduction in performance. If I was to get roughly the same, that would be like $25 of the HDD. And for this block storage, let's go to 1000. So it will be exactly $100 per month. For Hetzner as well, if you want to use them, I'll put a link. You can get 20 euros of free credit if you're new to Hetzner. But creating an account on Hetzner sometimes is difficult because they have so much demand that they probably try to decline as many people as possible just to reduce that. So the last option that I want to give you is not really a VPS. Okay, so this is an option on Hetzner as well. If you want storage, you can get a dedicated server with additional disks added. So let's see the options. Let's say you want like 15 terabyte of storage. How much is that going to cost you? And let's look at, you just want storage. You don't want the best dedicated server. So come here under server finder to find a dedicated server that you can use. And I said I wanted something that's got at least 15 TB. So here under drives, if I scroll down here on this end, I can say I want a drive that's, let's just leave it there at maybe 6 TB. That's just to reduce the options that you get on this end. And at the same time, you can also say whether you want HDD, SATA, or SATA SSD, or NVMe. That's an option, but I'm not going to drill down on that. Any option you see, it means that you can configure it and add an additional storage. For example, in this case, let me use this as an example, and I'm going to click there on configure. And by default, with this, you're going to get Ryzen 5 3664 GB, and you're going to get 2 drives of NVMe, 2 512 GB NVMe, and this will be the boot drive. There will be in software RAID 1. But you have to set that up if you watched my video of setting up Hetzner dedicated servers. Now, the next thing that you'd have to change here is, and that is what brought us here, is the drives. So if you scroll down to the drives section, you can add an additional drive. Maybe you want 2 NVMe SSD. That will be $18 a month added to that. If you want SATA, the SATA SSDs, you can get an additional 3.8 TB at $48. Based on your budget, you can get whatever you need. You can get 16 terabyte of enterprise HDD at $27 per month. If you add that, you're going to get, for $69 a month, you're going to have 16 TB that you can use as an additional storage along with the boot drive. This is just an option I wanted to show you. Now, there are many possible options here. It's not just that. You can also get NVMe for, I think NVMe goes up to 7 TB. So if you wanted one of those, you'd just have to keep searching and you'll eventually find one that matches what you need, right? Just configure it to add the disks that you need. All right, that should be it. If you need help setting any of this up, just feel free to let me know. And I will add all the links in the description below. See you next time. To change the upload size for PHP, just come here into settings. And then you can change for any PHP. Whichever one you change is going to change the others. So let me change this and I will click there on edit. And you can change the values here. You can make it larger. And if you change it here, it's going to change it to the others. And then just click save. Let's make this 130. This one as well, we can make 130. And then I'm just going to save. If we go back, you'll need to restart Apache. You can also restart Nginx, and then you can restart PHP, the one that you want to use now. That's the one you restart. Hi and welcome to this video. So I received this email from one of my YouTube viewers. The question essentially is, can you run WordPress on Hetzner ARM processors? Yes, of course you can. So if you come here under cloud and you go to prices, so if you come here under shared virtual CPU for Ampere, that is for the ARM processors, the prices are pretty affordable for what you're getting. So yeah, you can run WordPress on the Hetzner ARM processors, Hetzner Ampere processors. I've deployed about 10 different control panels for people on the Hetzner Ampere CPUs. So yeah, it can run WordPress, and there's a website that has been running for almost a year now. Never had any issues, never had any problems related to over CPU usage. I can confirm from past experience that yes, you can run WordPress on the Hetzner ARM processors. In fact, in the next WordPress setup, the series that I'm currently doing, so if you come here, hosting multiple WordPress sites on a VPS, the next one I will be doing will be Hetzner. The last one I did was DigitalOcean, so we are going to do the same thing on Hetzner. And for this reason, because of this question, I will use the Hetzner ARM64 processors. I'll do that after the next video I do, because the next video I want to do a Hetzner tutorial for beginners. If you're new to Hetzner, you can watch that. Until next time, and stay tuned. How to delete your Hetzner cloud server. If you don't want to continue getting charged for that server, you can just, on the server there, you can click on it to delete, or in the server, you can click there on delete server, copy the name of the server, paste it, and then delete the server. That's it. Hi there and welcome to another video. In this video, I want to look at DigitalOcean DNS or DigitalOcean domain. So first things first, what are the things you're going to need to make this work? First, of course, you need your domain registrar, because this is where we're going to change the name server for our domain to let DigitalOcean know that now it's in charge of the DNS for that domain. I will also use this control panel for demonstrations. So here I'll just add a website to see that the website is actually being redirected properly. So if you're using any control panel, you can follow the same procedures to ensure that your domain or your website is working appropriately. So if you want to install WordPress on a particular control panel, you have to ensure that your DNS records are working properly, especially if you're the one who is in charge of setting up the control panel. And the domain that I'm going to use is this domain. This is the same domain that I used in the Hetzner DNS tutorial. So I'm just going to go and do the same thing for DigitalOcean. And if you want to follow along with me, go to your domain registrar and do what I do. So let's come back to DigitalOcean. And if you want to go to the domains section or the DNS section for DigitalOcean, just come here under manage, and then under networking, you'll see the option for domains, which is there. So right now I don't have any domains here, but of course I'm going to add one. So I'm just going to enter the domain name, paste, and choose for which project this domain belongs. So you can see the domain has an error, and I can already guess that's because there are spaces at the end and at the beginning. Make sure your domain doesn't have any white space when you enter it there. And then I'm going to add domain. You need to update your name server records to tell DigitalOcean that they're in charge of managing the DNS for that domain. So if you scroll down here, you're going to see the DNS records that you need to add on your registrar's platform. So I'm just going to copy, and then I will come back to my registrar. I will click on name servers. So whichever registrar you're using, just find out where you can change the name servers. These are the name servers that I added for the Hetzner DNS tutorial. So I'm going to change them to match DigitalOcean's name servers. Paste. And here you're going to have to remove the decimal. Otherwise, you're going to get an error here. It depends on your domain registrar. So I'm going to update name servers. The name servers have been added successfully. So the next thing is for you to wait. And usually this will take some time. So that's all you have to do on your registrar. Just add the name servers and wait. But that's not a problem. I'm going to show you the way around to ensure that your DNS records are working properly. Now, the next thing, of course, you need to have records for your DNS, for your website. Since I have an IPv4 address, I'm going to use an A record. Your control panel, whether it's cPanel, HTTP, CyberPanel, Direct Admin, whatever panel you're using, is installed on a specific server, and that server has an IP address. So get that IP address, and that IP address, bring it to DigitalOcean here, and then add an A record. So you can enter the first record here. I'll enter @ simply means that domain. So if you enter @ it replaces it with mycoupons.com or whichever domain you're using. Enter where you want it to go. If you want it to redirect to a DigitalOcean droplet, you can select a droplet there. But of course, I want it to go to this IP address. So I'm going to enter the IP address there. And time to leave, you can change that there or just leave it at the default. Then I will create the record. So the first A record has been created. So an A record is the authoritative record that redirects people to your domain. So of course, with the main domain, you also need to add a www. So if I want to add a www, I will add it as a CNAME record. So I'm just going to click there on CNAME, and I'm going to add www. And I want it to be an alias of the domain, and I'm going to enter my domain there. So this is an alias of this. So if people go there, it's like they are supposed to get the files from this domain. And you can change the time to leave there. I'm just going to leave it at the default and create the record. All right, so we have the two main records. Now the other records, where are you going to get the other records? I'm going to show you once we add the domain to our control panel. I'm going to show you where you can get the other domain records, like mail records, MX records, all those other records. I'm going to show you where you can get them and ensure you add them to DigitalOcean. So let's just see if this has even propagated to DigitalOcean name servers. So I'm going to use DNS checker. You can just go online and search for DNS checker, or you can search for name server checker and then go to dnschecker.org, and we want to come here to NS lookup, or if you're on the home page, you can just enter the domain that you want to check, and here we're going to choose NS for the name server check, and then I will search. In certain regions, it has propagated to DigitalOcean, but if I come and try to go to the domain, let's see if it has propagated in my region. It hasn't. So I'll come back to Webuzo, and now we can add our domain. To add the domain, I'm just going to copy the domain. Whether you're using cPanel, whichever control panel you're using, you can add your domain now. If I come here to domain, I can click on add domain, and I want to add it as an add-on domain. I'll leave the path as that. I will leave that unchecked, and I will add the domain. So the domain was added successfully. And even if we try to access the domain, it's still not redirecting properly. That usually just requires some time. Just give it some time to propagate. And then once it propagates, you can access your domain without any problems. Everything takes time when it comes to DNS records. So let's go to the Opera browser and check if there's a region where we can access our domain. Let me turn on VPN. Let me try Europe and see if it has propagated. So that hasn't. Try a different region. Asia. Paste and go. Okay, so this is showing something that I did earlier, and I created something like that. So usually just requires some time. Just give it time. It's going to propagate. Okay, so let's see how to get the other records. So I'm just going to go back again. Now I need to go to DNS. Is it under domains? Yeah, under domain, DNS zone, but on Webuzo or cPanel, you can also search there. And you're going to find your DNS zone settings and go there. And then of course, choose the correct domain from there. So if your control panel is different, then just find the DNS records for your domain. So you can see we have all these records. You can add all these records to the DigitalOcean domains or DNS interface. So let's come and add one of these. We have www. Let's see. Yes, we already have www added. Which record can we add? Can we add as an example here? Okay, we can add the FTP. So let's add this as an example, and it is a record. So I'll come back here. Let me copy. I will copy the IP in advance, then come back. Here we need to add an A record. So I'll click on A record, and it is going to be FTP, and then the IP address. So there is some space. Make sure that there is no space, white space, when you enter any of these items on DigitalOcean. So I'm going to create the record. FTP dot is already added. Let's see which other one we can add. Okay, let's add a TXT record. You've already seen how you can create a CNAME record. So let's see how we can add this TXT record. Let's do the one for DMARC. Oh no, let's do the one for domain key here for DKIM. So the DMARC, SPF, and are all for email. If you're going to use this server for sending email, make sure you add these records, because if you don't, your mail will end up in the spam folder. If you don't want that, make sure you add this SPF, DMARC, and DKIM records. So let's do just one example with the DKIM record. So I'm going to copy that, which is the name, and I will put it in DigitalOcean, I will come to txt. I want to add a txt record. So the value, so to copy this entire thing, just do yourself a favor. Click on edit and then Control A, Control C to copy everything. And I'm going to paste that in there. So here you can see that I have made a small mistake. I'm just going to paste that in there. That is the value. The value is not the name. The name actually is the host name. It definitely would not have made sense if it was the other way around. The value is the record itself. So just make sure you know that. And I think they should interchange this. So this one comes at the top, because naturally you should just add this first and then follow with that. So let's see if we can add another one. Let's add this one for DMARC. If you want to add the one for DMARC, I'm going to copy that, come back to DigitalOcean, add a txt record. Make sure you change the record up there appropriately. So the host name is that, and then the value is this. I will put the value there and then create the record. So if you have any other records that you know you're going to need, just make sure you bring them from this side to the other side. So let's see that MX. Let's add an MX record there. And the host name for the MX, I will just use @ to signify the domain name. And then the mail provider, this is your mail server. So if you're using an SMTP, make sure you add the correct domain host name that you will be given by your SMTP. So if you're using your own server, usually it will just be mail.yourdomain. So this thing propagated a long time ago. And I've just been making a mistake. I just looked at this and I saw that the folder is public HTML and I've been editing the wrong one. So I'm just going to come back here. The one that we should actually be working with is this file. So I'm just going to edit the file and you'll see that now that it is changing as it should. Hello there, sire. This is it. Save, come back here and let's open it in a new private window. And you'll see that everything is changing as expected. You can change it again. 00, save, refresh. And now Cloudflare is managing your DNS as needed. DigitalOcean is managing your DNS as needed. So if you want to add another domain, on your control panel, the process is the same. Come back here, back to domains, enter the domain name, choose the project, add the domain, and then add the records as I've shown you. Now, the next thing I want to look at before I end the video is how to add a subdomain. Maybe you want to create a subdomain called shop.yourdomain. Shop.yourdomain. So you can see this doesn't redirect anywhere. So what are you going to do? The first thing, come back to DigitalOcean and then add a new record. So the first record we're going to create, of course, is the A record. If you're using IPv6, you will start with that record. For me, I'm using IPv4. So I'm going to enter that there and then I'm going to get my IP address. So I'm just going to copy it from down here and I can simply click copy and then I will paste and then create the record. And you can also create a CNAME. Maybe you want www.shop. www.shop. This is going to redirect to shop, and then I'm going to create the record. At this point, if we come back here and we refresh, let's see if it's going to give us anything. Let's try another region. I will try Europe. Let's see if it has propagated in European servers. Okay, so you can see that in Europe, it has propagated. So just give it time and it's going to propagate everywhere, because the way it happens is that it propagates sequentially from one place to another until all the DNS servers have been updated. If you want to install anything on that, you can install it. If you wanted to add it to your control panel, you can do so. And I'm just going to click the add new. And I will add the subdomain, remove the protocol, and remove that as well. And I want to add it as an add-on domain. If you want to use it as a full domain on its own, just add it as an add-on domain. And with that, I'm going to add the domain. The domain was added successfully. Let's come back here. Can I open it in a new private window and get accurate results this time around? Or should I still use the VPN? Okay, so just give it time. It's going to propagate. Don't worry about that. That's all about time. All right, so in this video, I've shown you how you can use DigitalOcean to manage your DNS. And it doesn't matter which control panel you're using. You can use the control panel with DigitalOcean without any problems. So once you add the domain, make sure you copy the records just like you're supposed to. To use DigitalOcean, all you have to do is add your domain. Under domains, under networking domains, add your domain there, choose a project, add the domain, and then go to your domain registrar. Under name servers, add the name servers that you'll get from DigitalOcean. And where are the name servers? The name servers are here, this NS records. So just copy that, and add them to your domain provider. And then once you do that, you can add your domain to your control panel. But most importantly, if you're going to add your domain on a control panel, at least ensure you have an A record that matches the IP address for your server. That way, if you create the domain on the control panel, you can generate Let's Encrypt. So make sure you have an A record for your domain, and you also have a WW record. That should summarize this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I will see you in another video next time. Hi, and welcome to this video. In this video, you're going to see how to set up automatic updates in Debian. That is, automatic upgrades in Debian. In most tutorials, you've probably seen the automatic update is done, but they don't show you how to update third-party repositories. What are third-party repositories? So these are repositories that you add. For example, maybe you're using PHP from the Suri deb package, or maybe you've installed HTTP. Maybe you're using Nginx from the Nginx repository. So you're going to see how you can update all these kinds of packages. And in the end, you'll be able to set up your server to update automatically. A hands-free update for Debian server. So I'm going to deploy a Valtra server. If you want to test Valtra, you want to use it, I will add a promo code in the description. And this gives you $300 free credit from Valtra. If you don't know how to deploy a server on Valtra, I have a tutorial for how to do that if that's something you may want to do. So for now, I'm just going to pause the recording and then come back once I've deployed the server. Okay, there's my Debian server. It's now running. Before I log into the server, I'm going to use my Debian 12 initial server setup, and I'll add the link in the description. In case I forget, just remind me. So what I'm going to need is here under Setup Automatic Updates. So I'll try to log into the server. Come here, I'll copy the IP, open up terminal, and I'm using Terminator as my terminal. SSH root. Yes. I'll copy my password from there. Come back, Ctrl+Shift+V to paste. There we go. I'm logged into the server. Ctrl+L. So even before I do anything, let me just install. I'm just going to do an update. I'm just going to update the server and install various things here. So I'll come back here, Ctrl+Shift+V to paste. So just a side note, if you're on Windows and you want to follow along, install Git and then open up Git Bash and follow along, and you won't need to change any command. Even if you're on Windows, you'll be able to run everything I'm running, even though I'm using Linux for this tutorial. Set up automatic updates. So the unattended upgrades package is what is used for automating updates in Ubuntu and Debian. So that's what I'm going to install. So we are going to first of all install it and install it with that. And then we are going to enable automatic updates. And this, by running this, you're going to generate this file and you can edit this file to enable automatic updates. And these are just what is inside of the file that you'll be able to edit. So I'm going to copy everything there. Just click there to copy, and I'll do Ctrl+Shift+V, enter, and then I'll accept yes. All right, so this is the last command, and the last command was to open that file. So I just ran them together instead of running one at a time. I put them together. If I scroll down in this section where there is unattended upgrades, I can delete these two lines, and that's because I want to update the apps as well. So any applications that are installed using sudo apt install for the default Debian repositories, I can update them with that. Even the proposed updates, I'm going to allow that as well. So I can just delete the comment, delete the comment. Right now, even if I do escape and then Shift ZZ to save, so I'm sure automatic updates have been set up. So just as simple as that, your automatic update for default Debian has been set up. Now, what if you have third-party repositories, right? Like right now, I don't have any third-party repositories. I've just installed the server. Let's say I add Kubernetes. The best example I can show with this is Kubernetes. So if I come here to my site as well, instead of going to the documentation, I can add the Kubernetes repository, install kubeadm, kubectl, and all those applications. These are just for demos. They're not important for you to know what they're for. So I'm going to install kubeadm, kubectl. So somewhere here, we add the repository for Kubernetes. So I'm going to copy this entire thing. It's going to add the repository for Kubernetes, and it's also going to install kubelet, kubeadm, and all those. And I'm going to use that to show you how to auto update third-party repositories. Ctrl+L, Ctrl+Shift+V to paste, and I will run that. Even right now, if I was to, let's go back to Debian 12 initial setup. Right now, if I was to try and dry run the unattended upgrades. So I'm just going to copy that. We're going to see that no packages found can be upgraded, no pending auto removals. And that is not true because you saw that I installed Kubernetes. So next, let's see how we can set up third-party repositories. And in this case, the third-party repository that we have is Kubernetes. So the first thing, let me open up VS Code. There, auto update third-party repositories. So the default for Debian, if you look at this, let me copy this because I'm going to need it a bunch of times. Oh, and something else before I forget, this thing usually just logs me out if I don't do something for a while. So let me just leave htop running there for a moment. And this is just to make sure that the server doesn't auto log me out. So I'm just going to come here and Control V. I'm going to paste that in there, and Control C, Control Shift V. So you can see this is the default of how the distros are being labeled or being identified. Let's see how we can get our Kubernetes repository to look like that. Escape, Shift, ZZ, and I will leave htop running. I'm just running htop so it doesn't log me out. So we've established that this is how the others are being labeled in the unattended upgrades file. So let's come here and I'm going to paste that in there. That is a reference that we're going to use to edit and make sure our Kubernetes as well can also be added there so that it is updated. So the first thing we need to do, let's see all the repositories that are available on our Ubuntu, that are available on our Debian, I mean. So I will come here and I will list, Control C to get out of htop, and then Control Shift V to paste. And we want to see all the repositories that are available here. So you can see all this are Debian related. We don't care for the ones from debian.org. Those will be updated. The one we care about are the ones from Kubernetes. So we are going to copy this one, Kubernetes in release. So go for the in release, copy, come back. I will paste that in there, and let's come back here. And now we want to find out information about that repository. So I'm going to go up to here, copy. So this was an example I just added there with HTTP, but of course we don't have HTTP installed in this case. So I'm just going to use this. We want to see the file, the information for this repository. So that's why we are cutting to read the repository details. So let's come back, Control L to clear the screen, Control Shift V, enter. All right, so scroll all the way up because the only thing we are interested in here is from there to there. So I will copy that. I'm just going to paste the details there. We are going to make those details match this. All right, so origin, what are we told is the origin there? Copy the whole thing, origin, copy the whole origin from there, and then origin is equals to where Debian is, replace with the one for Kubernetes. And then after that we need the code name. Code name, what are we told is the code name here? Code name we're being told is deb. So let's come back here, and where code name is, remove everything before the comma and then replace with deb. And then label, what is a label? The label we're being told is ISV, Kubernetes stable version 130. So copy, and we're going to replace that with that. Control V. And now the moment of testing. So this is a part where this is why I chose to use Kubernetes, because you can see the repository is 130, but let me make the repository for this as 131. And we are going to change the repository for Kubernetes to 131. And you'll see that auto upgrades will help us upgrade it. Okay, so right now we've installed version 130, kubectl, kubeadm, and kubectl. It doesn't matter what those are. It's just that we're using those applications, we're using those packages as examples. So this is what you need to copy. So for every item that you want to auto update, make sure you find out its details and then you replace them. You replace them for that. Okay, just like I've done with this. So I'll come back here and I want to first of all open this file, the unattended upgrades file, copy. Let's come back. I will do Control C to get out of htop, Control L, Control Shift V, and then enter. And then let's come to that point, and I'm just going to press tab. Before I press tab, let me go into insert mode. So to go into insert mode in Vim, I'm just pressing I, then I'll press tab so that we can get some indentation there. I'll go back here and I will copy that, Control Shift V to paste. So the one for Kubernetes has been added. So right now, if you have others to add, just paste them after that. And that's how you do it for this file. So for this file, we are done with it. I'm just going to press escape and then Shift ZZ to save and exit. After that, the next thing, of course, is the moment of testing. So if I was to do the unattended upgrades dry run, copy. So the dry run, just as the name suggests, it dry runs it. So Control Shift V and then enter. So take a note of this. Okay. Look down there. You're going to see no packages found that can be upgraded, right? And that is true because our Kubernetes is still at version 130. So let's replace the Kubernetes version from 130 and let's make the new Kubernetes version. Let us say that we change the Kubernetes repository from version 130 to version 131. So if I change it to version 131, you'll see that now there is something to upgrade. So I've changed version 130 there and then enter. Kubernetes repository has been updated. So let's do apt update and check if, okay, so now that I can see 5 packages can be upgraded, this means that unattended upgrades can also identify those packages that need to be updated, but not that they can't be upgraded because Kubernetes usually hold these items, so they're not updated. If you want to update Kubernetes, you have to explicitly update it manually. So there we go, enter. And if I run that, you can see that it is telling me that the list of kept packages can't be calculated. So let me do this, okay? Let me, instead of dry run, let me just do debug without dry run. Enter. And now you'll see that, so I did debug without dry run because dry run is not going to show you packages that have been held back. So here you can see that kubeadm is marked as held back, but it has an update. So this means that unattended upgrades can actually update the third-party repositories. So right now, if I was to unhold these packages, and this is just a Kubernetes thing, but if this was another package, it would have automatically updated those items. So let's say, for example, that I come here and I unhold these packages. Okay, so you can see Kubernetes usually hold them back, so they're not updated automatically, or when you do apt update, apt upgrade, it doesn't update those items. Unhold, so you can just do sudo apt mark unhold, and this is going to unhold these packages. All right, so the hold on them has been cancelled. Right now, if I was to do sudo unattended upgrades debug, it's going to update those packages. So what can you see? All upgrades have been installed. Any repository that you add in that file will be updated, and you've seen how to get to that point. Everything you need is on this post. On the Debian 12 initial server setup, at the end of the day, you have to do it for any repository that you add, but at least now you're sure that all your repositories will be updated automatically, not just the Debian repositories. If the video is too long, I hope it was worth it, and now you know how to automatically update all your Debian packages, all your Debian repositories. The post is here. I'll put the link in the description. See you next time. If you want free credit of Valtra, you should know that now Valtra is giving away $300 free credit for new accounts. This used to be $100. Now it's $300. I will put the link in the description. If this is something that you want, then you can definitely get it as a new Valtra user. Of course, you're going to need to sign up with some mode of payment to get the $300 credit, maybe a credit card, PayPal, and so on. All right, that's it for this video. If you need help setting up your server, you can look at bizanosa.com. I provide Linux server support. If you need Linux server support services, we can help you set up your server, migrate your WordPress website or whatever you're running. We also provide monthly support for your Linux server. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Hi, and welcome to this video. In this video, you're going to see how to set up Postal, which is a free open source SMTP server, and you can use it for sending bulk emails. So if you want to send millions of emails, this would probably be the best free solution for you. So this is what Postal looks like, and we're going to see how to set it up. You can set up multiple organizations, and in every organization, you can have what is essentially called a mail server. And in those mail servers, you can set up domains. So you can set up as many domains as you want to, and we're going to see how to do all that. And most importantly, one of the best features of Postal is that it allows you to send emails using the IP pool setting. This is a way for you to rotate the different IPs that can be used for sending mail. So if you have multiple emails, you can add them here, and we're going to see how we can do that all in this video. So the next part, I want to talk about the tools I'm going to use and what you're going to need as well. So here is a list of what I'll be using in this tutorial, and you can use what I'm using, or I'll tell you alternatives. First of all, I have this post already written. I'll put the link in the description. This is just to help me install Postal. So if you follow along with this on your own, you're probably going to get lost. So make sure you watch every step of the video. Here as well, I have certain cloud providers you can use for this, and the reason I'm adding this is because you can get extra IPs here, especially for Vultr and DigitalOcean. You can get, and even Hetna and Contabo, you can get additional IPs. So I will be using Vultr for this tutorial, and if you want to use Vultr, I'll add the link in the description. I'll add the link below, and you can get $300 of free credit if you use the link. The same is true for DigitalOcean. You can get $200 of free credit. Feel free to support me. So the reason I'll be using Vultr is because Vultr has an easy interface. You can add a reserved IP. You can add as many IPs as you need to, and we're going to see how to add extra IPs, because this is crucial in sending millions of emails. We'll also look at compute when I deploy the server. The next thing I'll use is Cloudflare. So you can use any platform to manage your DNS. Even Vultr has a DNS management system. If you come here under DNS, you can add a domain and change the name servers wherever that is needed. But I'll be using Cloudflare. You can follow along with me with Cloudflare. And the documentation for Postal is here. I'll also add the link to the documentation. If you click there on getting started, most of the things you're seeing here are all adapted from this. All right, are all adapted from the documentation. So if anything is not clear, you can go to the documentation. Let's get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy a compute server on Vultr. You can use any cloud provider, and if you're going to use any which I've linked to below, feel free to support me by using the link. I'm going to deploy a server on Vultr. So before you continue, on Vultr and DigitalOcean, you'll need to request for SMTP port to be open for you, and they usually open it for you. So just give them the details they need, and they will open the SMTP for you. And the good thing is that they will open it on account level basis. So any other instances you deploy will be able to send mail. Here, you should probably go with a dedicated CPU. All right. If you're just testing, you should go with a shared. But if you want to send lots and lots of emails, just go with a dedicated CPU. You can even go with the bare metal if that is within your budget. Dedicated CPU, and I will choose my data center in Chicago. And also note that once you deploy your extra IPs, they have to be in the same data center. So for this, let me go with CPU optimized. And CPU optimized, you see I can get 4 virtual CPUs, 8 GB for $80 a month. If I go for the same thing on general, with the general purpose for 4 virtual CPUs, I can't get 4 virtual CPUs and I need 4 virtual CPUs. They recommend 2, but I'm going to go with 4. So if you look here, I added that. They recommend 2 and 4 GB of RAM, but always go with higher. So I'm going to go with the CPU optimized for 4 virtual CPUs and 8 GB of RAM, and that will be $80 a month. Click on configure to continue. And for the operating system, I'm going to go with Debian 12. And then SSH keys. If you don't have SSH keys, make sure you add an SSH key. You can go to your account and just copy the public key in there. If you go here under account, there is a section for SSH key. You can add your SSH key there. So I'm just going to use one of my keys. And something else that I should do now is enable the firewall. Now, Postal, the way Postal works, it uses Docker. And if you know about Docker, you know that at least you need some firewall between your VPS and the world, right? So before you make anything publicly accessible, make sure there's a firewall between you and Docker. And that does not include the firewall that is built into your operating system. So since I'm using Debian, UFW will be there, but we're going to disable the UFW and just let Docker do its thing. Let me show you how you can create a firewall, because this is important. And just before I continue, just know this is not going to be a short video, because we're going to do a lot of things in this video. So bear that in mind. Be prepared. It's not going to be a short one. So let me just open anything else here. So let me show you how you can create a firewall. Open link in a new tab. Let me create the firewall. To create a firewall, come here under network and then select firewall. So I'm going to add a firewall group. Give it a name. I'll call it Postal. I can't see what I'm typing there, but it's Postal. And then add the firewall group. All right, now that is done. The firewall has no rules, so we can add some rules. By default, it accepts the SSH port, but we need to add other rules. So for IPv4, I'm going to add a rule. Click on the plus. And the first rule I want to add here is SSH HTTPS. I'm just going to allow HTTPS only. I'll go to the next port. I need to allow the SMTP port, and by default, Postal uses port 25, and they actually recommend use port 25. So just stick with the default. I'm going to click on TCP, and here I will give it port 25. Click on plus. Port 25 is added. Which other port are we going to need here? So Postal is responsible for sending. It doesn't really handle all the things that are related with Dovecot. So things like port 993, 995, those are not important here. Anyway, if there's any other port we'll need, we're just going to add it later on. I'm going to add other ports here as well for mail. I can add port 587. And also, if you're going to change your SSH port, make sure you add the new port here. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Those are the ports I'll allow. And then let's come back here to firewall group. So of course, I can't select it until I refresh. So I'm not going to refresh. I'm just going to select it later on. Server host name. I'm going to use this domain on Cloudflare for all demonstrations. So let me use this, and most importantly, I want to add this here as a host name, and the reason I'll add it is because it's going to automatically set up the host name for me, and I can use that. For all the mail servers, I'm going to use something like mail.dat. Okay, so this will be my main host name. So I'm going to copy that and then bring it back to Vultr, and I'm going to add it there as my host name. Since this is a demonstration, I can disable automatic backups. I can also enable IPv6, and the rest I can just leave them as they are. So let's confirm. Location Chicago, cause, memory, Debian, SSH key setup. So I'm going to deploy. Let it continue provisioning. I'm waiting for the IP. I want to add this on Cloudflare. There is our IP. Copy the IP. Let me add an A record for my domain. And I want to add an A record for mail. Enter the IP, and I will gray it out. Okay, to gray it out just means unproxying. And then I'm going to save. This is going to be our mail server. I don't want to access my postal web interface using the same domain. So I'm going to create another one here. Let me call it mail app. And I'm going to add the record. So later on, we are going to use this. For this one, you can proxy it because this is for HTTPS. This is how you're going to access the web interface for postal. For now, I can leave it proxied, and I just want to test. I'll test and see if it works when it's proxied. That is the initial setup. So I will save. Let's log into the server. Copy the IP. The user by default will be root. And remember, I set up an SSH key. So that's what I'm going to use to log in. So at this point, I know if you're using Windows, you're probably wondering what you should use. If you're on Windows, don't worry about it. You can follow step by step without changing any commands. And what you'll need is to go to Google, search for Git download. You can search for Git download and then download it for Windows, install it, and then open Git bash. Open Git bash and follow along. Git bash is a terminal you can use on Windows to run Linux commands. That's all you need if you're on Windows, nothing else. If you're on a Mac or Linux, just open your terminal and follow along. I will open up my terminal. SSH. The user is root. Control-Shift-V to paste on the Linux terminal. If you're on Git bash, you can paste using Shift Insert. And I want to use my key to log in. So identity of the key, and I know it's inside of SSH. SSH. That's the key. You can log in with a password if you want to. I believe they haven't blocked logging in with a password, and you can get your password. If you click on it, that is your server. Your password is there. You can copy it and try to log in with that. All right, there we go. Control L to clear the screen. So the first thing I want to do is to update the server. I'm assuming you have some idea of how to manage your Linux server, because if you don't, it's going to be really hard for you to manage your mail server. So with that said, you should do everything to secure your server. I do have an initial server setup for Debian 12, and you can follow the steps to make sure your server is in the same level. The only thing you'll need to skip there is the firewall setup, because we're not going to use UFW. I'm also not going to do those things here. I just want to show you how to set up your mail server with Postal. But with that said, the first thing I want to do here, I want to disable password authentication. And I know in Vultr, they use Cloudinit, and Cloudinit usually creates a certain file here that I can use to disable password authentication. That means that to log in, you have to use the SSH key. SSHD tab autocomplete, tab autocomplete, tab to autocomplete, and this is a file. if I open this file, password authentication is yes. I want to make it no. Shift ZZ to save on Vim. At some point, I'm going to restart the server, so I don't really need to restart SSH. So the next thing after this is, let me add additional IPs. Right now, if I do IP A, I only have the one IP, the one IP4, and the accompanying IPv6. So you can do this later, but let me do it now. I will go into my Valtra account and I want to provision some reserved IPs. So if I go into networking, I can go to reserved IPs. So the good thing with Valtra, this process is very easy. Just make sure your IP is in the same data center as the server you want to attach it to. So I'm going to add a reserved IP and choose Chicago. That's where my server is. And then you can give it a label. Let me call it mail 0. I will add IP. Remember, it's $3 per month. So I'll add a second one. So if you need to add more, you'll just follow everything. I'm adding 2 just to show you an example of how to go about it. So I'll add a second one. And also in Chicago, label, I'll call this mail 1, add IP. So they're both in Chicago. And I will go back to the IP, the first one. And then I will attach it to my server. It's the only one there. So I will attach it to the server. So this is kind of like in VirtualBox when you maybe add an additional IP, you attach it to that server, but the server still doesn't know that it is attached to it. So that's the next thing we're going to do after attaching it here. This is just to let the virtualizer know that that IP belongs to that machine. So I'm going to go to the next one and do the same thing and attach it. So you can see attached to the instance there. The next one will also be attached to the same instance. Attach. That's not the end of it. We have to go back to the server, go to compute and click on it. You want to go to the settings for this server, and I'll come here under settings. So you can see it's quite easy to do on Valtra, and the reason why I'm saying it's easy is because the moment I click on this, it's going to give me exactly what I need to add to my Debian to get it to work. So you can see on Debian, it has generated what I need for my interfaces. And this is what I'll need to add on my server. So there's the first address. This is a default address. And then this is the IPv6 that it came with. And this is the IP I've just gotten now. And this is also the IP I've just gotten now. Copy. And you can actually see what's inside that file. Cut. Control-Shift-V. This is what is in that file. We need to remove everything and add what we've gotten from Valtra. And just in case you want to, you can actually save it in future. If you want to go back to the default, you can simply bring back the old configuration. So I'm just going to save it in the same location as .back. And now I can edit it. VI, Control-Shift-V, enter. I want to delete everything in this file. Since I'm using Vim, I can just do something like 20 dd. Basically, it's saying that delete the next 20 lines. So since the lines are less than 20, it will delete everything. And then I'll go back and copy what we've gotten from Valtra. I'll just select everything from here. Control-Shift-V. And then I'm just going to escape out of that. Click escape, Shift ZZ to save. All right, so from here we can restart the server. Is there anything else I need to do before I restart the server? So I do have a Debian initial server setup, and if you just come here, you can search for it, and the one you want, you see these are videos, but the one you want is this one. You can follow this to set up the server, and one thing I'd recommend is you create an admin user that you can use with the server. In my case, I'm going to use root. That's the only reason I brought you to this post, but in my case, I'm going to use root. I'm just going to continue with root. So at this point, you can reboot. Before I reboot the server, I want to edit the host name. So even now, if I look at IPA, it's still going to show me the old IP. So I'll need to reboot. But first of all, I want to edit my host's file. Now, one of the most important thing, especially if you're sending to Google, they will reject your email if the reverse DNS is not set up. And for you to set up the reverse DNS, you have to make sure that your host's file has the correct IP, or rather the correct host name set up. So in this case, let me do cat. I want to check etc hosts file, and you can see, okay, this one has been set here. So this is roughly correct, and I'm going to copy this, and I just want to add what I need to add here. Control V. You're going to see how to set this up. So that's mail. That's the first one. I have 3 IPs. So Control V. This one I will use as mail 0 as the host name for that. And then for the third IP, I'm going to use this. So of course I need to add the IPs. So let's go back and get the IP addresses. Additional IPs. Copy the second additional IP, Control V, and then the second additional IP, the default IP that will be used as the main host name right there. So I'm going to, before copying that, let me come back to the server, and on Vultr, if you want to change your host name, just add it in here. Just add it inside of that template, because if you add it here, it will be lost the next time you reboot the server. So VI Control Shift V to edit that template, and I'm just going to add this. We're trying to get our mail delivered to all mail servers. So just after this, let me add this Control Shift V like that. And then I will save that, escape, Shift ZZ. So at this point I can reboot, and I'll reboot via the Vultr dashboard. So I'll just restart it there, server restart the server. And once that is done, we're going to see our IP addresses have been added there. And while that is happening, let me add the A records for all our extra IPs. We already have one for mail, that is it. So let's add the one for mail.0. So add a record mail.0, mail 0, paste the IP, and I'm going to unproxy that, save, get the second IP will be mail 1, copy, add an A record for this, it will be mail 1, paste the IP, unproxy, and then save, mail 0, mail 1. All right, so we are halfway there. Before we even log back into the server, let us set up the correct reverse DNS for all our IPs. And then here under settings, is it under settings? Let's go to settings and check. Yes, here under settings, under IPv4, we need to change the reverse DNS. The reverse DNS for the main IP is that. Paste, update, and then the reverse DNS for the second IP. We're trying to make sure our mail gets in the inbox. paste, enter. Let us paste that like that. That's all we have to do there. That's done. Let's go back to the server, log back in. And something I haven't done and I should have done is attach the firewall to this server. So where do I let's go to networks, firewall, and the firewall was called postal. So I'm just going to click on it. So here where it says linked instances, let me click on that. It's down here as well. So we only have the one instance, so it's already pre-selected, and I can just click there on plus to link it, add linked instance. Well and good. Now it shows we have one linked instance. If you want to link another, you can click there to link it. You can use the same firewall group for multiple instances. You can actually test it. You can disable SSH and test it if it's going to allow you to log in. The first thing I want to do is just check if my IPs are now recognized by Debian. So IPA, there we go. We have that IP there. INET, we have that one there. And then we have the IPv6. And I can update the system, apt update, and apt upgrade. So I'll just wait for this to finish and then we can continue. And the next thing we're going to do is to start installation. So we're going to install Docker, and I've put everything here to make it easy for you. So I'll copy that and wait for the installation to complete, for the update to complete, and then we'll start the Docker installation. All right, it's complete. Control L to clear the screen, Control Shift V to paste. Run that. So that has installed Docker, and you can see the hello Docker has been successfully ran. So if you want to know more about this, just go to the Docker documentation. Everything is there. And then if you're not using the root user, make sure you add your current user to the Docker group. And this is going to allow you to run Docker without doing sudo docker this, sudo docker this, sudo docker, right? If you don't want that, this is what you do. And then reboot the server to make sure that you can run without using sudo. We need to get the postal installation helper. So this is a helper repository. It has all the Docker Compose files that will install and set up your postal installation, postal SMTP installation. First, let's install these prerequisites. Some of these are probably already installed, but let me just install them. Enter. And the next step is we want to clone the repository. You can go to the postal GitHub repository to look at it, but you're going to clone it, and then a symlink will be set up for that so that it is in the user bin directory. It is important for it to be in the user bin directory is so that you can use postal without having to go to the direct path. Okay, so you can just say postal restart, postal stop. That's why you create that symlink. Then I'll copy, Control L. Let me just do this inside of a directory. I'm going to do mkdir, and I'll call it work directory. Then I'll go into that directory. So I can work inside of this directory. Paste, Control Shift V, enter. There we go. If we do an ls, we won't see anything in here because it was automatically put in there. But we're going to use this directory to create certain compose files for other things like database and CADI that are needed by Postal. The next step is to install MariaDB. So according to the documentation on Postal, you can go to the documentation right there. Some of these steps are there. This is what they use to install MariaDB, and it will give you MariaDB, which version was installed here. I don't know which version that is, but I have this compose file, and this is the one I'm going to use. And this compose file will install MariaDB 11.4, which is the latest LTS version as of the date of this recording. So I'm just going to create the Docker compose file, copy, Ctrl+Shift+V to paste. I will add everything here. So note that we're going to create an env file for the password. Instead of adding the password there, we're going to create an env file for the database password. I've just decided for Postal to use the root user, and that will give it dominion over all MariaDB database. So it can create tables, create databases, and the schema, everything needed without any issues. So I'm going to save this, Shift+ZZ. The next thing, I need to create the env file, vi.env, in the same directory as the compose file. And in that, I want to add the password for my database. Generate a password here. Copy, Ctrl+Shift+V, escape, Shift+ZZ. Of course, let's bring the database up. Right now, if we do docker container ls, we don't have any containers running, but let's bring the MariaDB database up. Docker compose up in the background. Enter. All right, let's look at all our containers. So you can see it's starting up. After a while, it should be healthy or not. And if it is not healthy, we're going to look at it and see why it is not healthy. So let's just wait for the database to be ready. Try again. Once the database is started, we're going to see if we can bootstrap a configuration file. And I don't want to type that, so I'm going to come back here, Ctrl+V, and we want to bootstrap using this domain. Copy. So this is just going to generate the needed configurations. So any place where a domain is needed, maybe SMTP, it's going to add that domain. But remember, for the interface, I'm going to change the domain to mail app, and you're going to see how you can change that and ensure that it's working. So let's go back and check on our MariaDB. There you go. You can see now it's running, it's healthy. That's what I want to see. Now, let me run that. Ctrl+Shift+V, enter. And you can see that has generated this. It has also generated the CADI file. So since I will not be using this to access my web server, to access the web interface for Postal, I'm going to have to edit the CADI file as well, but you're going to see that in a moment. For now, let's add the database details for this. So you can also use an env file to add the database details for that, but I'm just going to add it directly. You can use what is provided in the documentation, the env. If you come here under configuration, you can see all the possible environment variables, and you can use that in an env file. But in my case, I'm just going to add the database in this YAML configuration file. So since the web host name, this is where you access Postal on the browser, I want to use a different domain here. So I'm going to use mail app. Anything else I need to edit? SMTP host name will be the same. Main database, the username will be root. If you used a different user other than root, make sure you change the username there. And for the password, I'm just going to use I'm just going to use a literal password. I'll copy that, Control-Shift-V, paste it in there. And then for the postal database, you can call it whatever you want. In this case, I can call it postal DB1. And then for the prefix, now for the message DB, the password is the same, Control-Shift-V. And then the prefix, you can also change the prefix. So the prefix is what comes in under the table name, maybe postal table name _ table name. So for this, I can also just change it, maybe messages. Scroll down to see if there's anything here that you need to change. So for the DNS records, I'm going to add this later, not now. I'm going to add them once I add the domain to the postal interface, and I'm just going to use that to help me. And if we test and we see any errors, maybe it is not at 100%, maybe DMARC is not working, SPF is not being recognized, we're going to do those later on, all these DNS records. So this is not important here for now. So this configuration file, you can add lots and lots of different things. So if you come back to what I've just shown you here, if you go to the all environment full postal configuration file, you can find the different configurations that you can add to your postal, right? Use IP pools. Actually, I want to enable IP pools. And this is under postal. IP pools, that's something that I want to enable, and it is under postal. Control-Shift-V. IP pools true. If there's anything else you want to enable, you can do so here. DNS. These are all things you can set up. So custom return path. This is also something that it generates by default, but you can change this. So I'm just going to leave it at default, but you can change this, and you're going to see what this is later at some point once we send a sample email. So you can look at the configuration and edit whatever you need to edit, and then just add it in your configuration file. So that's all I need to edit here. I'm just going to escape and then Shift ZZ to save the configuration. Come back here, and this is a moment of truth. Okay, if you experience any problem once you run this, if you don't access the database, just know something is wrong, and you're going to need to figure out what the issue is. In my case, I hope I've set up everything correctly. So when I run postal initialize, it should work. So if you're unable to run this, you might need sudo. You might need to use sudo, but not always. So postal initialize, let it do that, pull the images. And so you can see this is where you can see the Docker Compose. If you go to this is what you downloaded with GitHub. This means that everything went well. If you don't see any error, everything went well. So you can look at the Docker Compose. That is the bare minimum Docker Compose. So the error you're seeing up here is because of that. You can just remove that, but just leave it. Maybe in the next release, they will edit this out. You need various services. Web. This is a web interface, and that is the image for the web interface. The network mode is host. Volumes, SMTP. If there's anything you want to add here, you can always come in here and add. For instance, if you change the MariaDB database network, you might need to change it here, but it needs to work with the host so that it can get access to your IPs. Maybe you want to run multiple worker nodes. You want to scale this, you can scale it here. and run multiple containers of the worker container. So that's something you can do. And I'm not going to go any further than that. That's just showing you what is possible. Now that that worked, we can set up our first user. This is the user we're going to use to log into the web interface of Postal. So Control-Shift-V, make user. So the email address, I'm just going to use Wahowa, rickywahowa@gmail.com. Enter. First name, Ricky Wahowa. That's me. Initial password. Let me just copy that, put it there. Control-Shift-V, enter. There we go. Now you're ready to log into your front end. But unfortunately, you won't be able to if you did things the way I've just done it. And that is because I haven't changed something that's important. I need to edit the CADI file. So opt postal config. We've been editing this, but I need to edit the CADI one. So if I do Control-R to search for the last thing I edited, to search for some of the things I've edited, VI, postal, yeah, this is the one I need. So you can just do Control-R to search. And here I want to edit the CADI file. Tab. Let's edit this, and our address for this is mail up dot escape shift ZZ. You can see how easy it is to use CADI. It will automatically issue an SSL. And now start running Postal. I haven't started Postal, and that's just all I need. If you want to check the status, if the containers are running, you can use Postal status, Postal restart to restart Postal, and then Control-Shift-V. Let's start Postal now. The next step, of course, is to proxy the web traffic. Now, of course, I can use that, but I'd rather put this in the same compose file. Or if you want to, you can put it in its own compose file, give it whatever name you want to give it, and then when you're running it, you'll run it as docker compose-f for file name, and then the name of the compose file. But in this case, I'm just going to add this in the compose file I already have. So I'm going to do vi, and the compose file is in this current directory. So if I do d tab, it will autocomplete the name, enter, and at the end here, just before volume, let me add Shift I and then escape. I want to add that, so Control-Shift-V, and of course format it correctly so that it is in the same line with that. So I'm just going to do U to undo that, and let me go into insert mode, and as long as I'm in insert mode, I want it to be in the same line with that. 1, 2, Control-Shift-V. Just make sure that you format it correctly. These are 2 spaces, and so an easier way to put it, just know that this 2 spaces and this 4 spaces, and it should now be correctly formatted. And then I'll just escape, Shift ZZ, and now I can rerun my Docker Compose. So I can just search for it again, Control-R, and I think it's the only thing that had -d. So I'm just going to run it up again, Docker Compose app -d, enter. Okay, there we go. CADI is now started. So theoretically, we should be able to access CADI, to access the front end by going to mailup.domain. Enter. So I think the issue is the Cloudflare proxy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to unproxy it. Save. Okay, so it's not even the proxy. The issue is UFW. If I do Control L and I do UFW status, if you're not the root user, do sudo UFW status, you'll see that we have not allowed the SSL port. And if I do IP tables -L to list all the rules, you're going to see that Docker has added something here. Where are we? So you'll see UFW has added rules. Docker has added rules. So even in the documentation of Docker, they say they don't play well together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disable it. And of course, I added something down here to disable it. Did I add it? Okay, I didn't add it, and I should definitely add it here. To disable UFW. It's not that difficult. You can just do sudo UFW disable. So firewall stopped. And then you also need to stop it. systemctl stop UFW. And then you also need to stop it from starting with the system. So I'm going to disable it. And if you want to go further, you can even uninstall it, but I'm just going to leave it running. So with that, let's see if anything has improved here. Okay, so right now it's working. If you see that, it means that we are able to access our server. But the issue now is we have to rerun Kadi to issue the SSL. So Docker compose, let me just bring this down. Docker compose down. I'll bring it down and then I'll bring it up again. Docker compose up -D. Hopefully this will have fixed our SSL issue. We are now in SSL mode. If we reload it, there we go. You can now log in to Postal. Come back and log in with your email Arwa. The email was Arwahowa for Ricky Wahowa. And then I'm going to paste login. I want to stay logged in. So remember me. Right. So that is Postal for you. So first thing you need to do is add an organization. So I will create a first organization, and you can create as many organizations as you have. Trial 1. This one needs to be small letters, so I'll just call it trial 1. Create organization. There are no mail servers, so I will build the first mail server. So this one as well, I'll just call it first server. Short name. I think that will be generated. Mode live. So come to edit it and make it development or live. So let's make it live. And the IP pool, there are no IP pools, but you can see we are able to set up IP pools. So if you didn't add the option I added for IP pools, this will not be there. You need to add that option first. In your configuration file, stop Postal and then restart it. So at this point, I can just build the first server. Now let me add a domain. So I can just add this domain and add the DNS records at this point. So copy that, and I want to add that, and then I'll add the DNS records here. So you can read about sending and receiving mail. So on the dashboard here, you can do everything. Let's go to domains. I want to add a domain. Add the domain. I just need to test, make sure everything is working before I end the video. For the domain, create domain. And now we need to add these records. we need to add these records here. But even before doing this, let me come back to the documentation, and under DNS configuration, let me add some important ones. So these ones we've already added. Of course, I've not added the IPv6. To add IPv6 records for the A record, you just need the code A record. Instead of A, choose A, the code A record. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to add that. That's something you can do. This we've already set up. Host name. Now for the host name, the MX records, which are the default MX records? Let's look at the MX records that we were told we should have. So I'll just do Control R again to search for postal.yaml. Okay, there we go. So I want to look at Control A to go to the beginning of the line, and then I just want to cut it. And what I'm looking for is DNS. Okay, so here under DNS, we have this MX. So let's add this mx.digbytes MX records for all domains will be that, an A record for the MX records. So that's there. And you don't need to add all the IPs. You just need to add the main IP. So for this, I'll just paste it there. MX and the IP, the main IP for our server, that's the one we're going to use there. Copy. And if you're on Cloudflare, all the records you add, make sure you gray them out. And then I'll save. Let's add this as an A record. And proxy, save, route as well. Add, paste, and then which other one? Okay, track. If you need to track your emails, let us add that one as well. And proxy, enter. Let's wait and see. Let's see what we have here. If I come to my postal, where is postal? There. We'll need SPF record. Okay, there. We'll need a DKIM record. Return path RP. We need to set up a CNAME to RP for this. And then MX records. So this PSRP is what I was telling you. If you don't want it to be like that, the return path, if you come here under configuration, there is something to do with, where is it? Under DNS. Are we under DNS? Okay, under DNS, you can change the custom return path. Okay, so add whatever you want. Maybe you want yours to be mail D or mail B. You can add whatever you want there. And then MX records, we need to add a root level MX record for that. So let's come back here again. So we've added at least an MX record there with an A record. SPF record, let's use this SPF record. And I'm going to edit it. SPF record, let me put it under this, Control V. And we are going to need to allow that IP, Control V. And then IPv4. Let's copy this one again. Control C, Control V, Control V, because we need to add it for this one. For the second IP, the second IP, Control V. And then for the IPv6, let's get the IP from Volta. And we can copy our IPv6 right there and add it there. So it's also allowed to send mails for our server. Copy. And for this to work, make sure you add the matching A records, matching code A records. Let's come here and we're going to add a TXT record. TXT. Let's just search for txt, enter, and this is going to be the root domain. Paste, and for that, let's say it exclusively sends to that. So use a dash there instead of the tilde, and then I'll save, and then I'll add the same. I'll add the same for PSRP. I'll also have it use the same SPF record. So txt name PSRP. Paste that, save. So for the SPF records, well and good. Okay, so I understand something here. Let me also add it for SPF. And this is a way for you to make sure that even others don't really need to add it. Other people using the server, other domains won't need to add it. I finally understood what that was about. I was wondering, why are you adding that there again? spf.mail. And if I add it with my IP, okay, this is supposed to be a txt record. spf.mail, paste. And we added the A record for SPF. So all these which are here, let's just add A records for them. Some of them have probably added, so if you see an error, it means that it has already been added and Cloudflare cannot duplicate. So I'm going to use the main IP here. I'm going to use the main IP for the server. And you can also add for the IPv6. So if you want to add for the IPv6, let me paste first. If you want to add for the IPv6, you're just going to use the code A record with the same record, and then you add the IPv6 record there, and then on proxy. So at this point, we have lots of records, lots and lots of records. And if you come back to the domain that we've added, let's see what it's going to tell us. I've added this, I've added that, I've added that. mx.mail. Let me add an mx record at the root level. Mx at the root level. Add record. mx. And we're going to add at the root level. Paste. Is this really an mx? Why am I not seeing the mx features? All right, so at the root, and then paste, and we're going to give it a priority of 10, and then we're going to save that. Let me see what else I need to add for this. Okay, so for the SPF record, include this. I really don't need to add this because I've already added the IP, so I don't think this is really necessary. But if we receive any errors, once we start checking our emails, we'll see if that is something I need to add. This is important. So I'm going to add this domain key, copy. Let's come to that, add txt record, paste. I'll copy the entirety of the DKIM record, Control V, enter. Return path RP. Did I add an A record for that? PSRP. Okay, it doesn't have an A record, but this has an A record. So let's add this PSRP as a CNAME. So let's add CNAME and then paste that, and I'll come back and this one, copy, put it there, and of course gray it out, save. We've already added this. if you wish to receive incoming emails. If you'll not be receiving incoming emails, you don't need to add an MX records to the domain. So it's important to note what Postal can do. Postal can send email, but you can't receive in the natural sense of what you're used to. So for you to receive, you'll have to set up some form of routing, and the routing is going to help let Postal know where to send that email. You can route to another SMTP server, to another email, and so on. So let me just check my DNS records. So there seems to be something wrong with your DNS records. Check below for the information. An SPF record exists, but it doesn't include that. All right. And for who are we including that? Okay, this. All right, no problem. Let's just include it. Let us just include that. All I need to do is to add it. All I need to do is to add it in the root domain. So where is the txt for the SPF? SPF.mail, PSRP. The one that I need to edit is this one. So the root domain needs to add that. I don't know why they insist on it, but the IP is already covering it. Control V, include that. And then I'll save. And I can check again. All right, so everything is green now. The moment of truth. Let's try to send an email to Gmail. Come here under messages. I will send message. Let's just send to that. Send. So it's probably in the spam folder. Okay, it has gone to the spam folder. And I want to check what Google thinks about my email. So I'll click there, show original. And so SPF has passed and it was sent with IPv6. DKIM has passed. Anyway, the good thing with Postal is that if this fails to deliver, it's just going to default back to the IPv4 and it will try to deliver with the IPv4. This shouldn't worry you because that's how Postal works. It will automatically default to the IPv4 if this fails to deliver the message. So let me go to mail tester, and mail tester is going to give me an actionable list that will allow me to improve my mail server. So let's come back here and we're going to send to that mailtester.com. So I hope I have not finished my quota for the day. Try to send. And then check your score. Okay, so apparently I've finished my quota, but that is not a problem. This is what we do. Let's go to the Opera browser, private window. I'm going to enable VPN and I can go to mailtester.com. Copy. And let's come back here. I will send the message again. Paste. Send. Check. All right, so our score is currently 7 out of 10. So let's see what the issue is, and we're going to try and fix them one at a time. So the bigger deal is here, you're not fully authenticated. So SPF, your server is authorized to use, that's good. Your DKIM signature is valid, that's good. You do not have a DMARC record. So DMARC, that's not a problem. We're just going to copy this DMARC record. Copy. Let me increase this font. Copy the DMARC. And I'll come back here to Cloudflare. Add another TXT record. TXT. And I'll just copy this. What is here? DMARC reject. Come back. We're going to reject all email, and at the same time, you can report to us anything in this email. So we can say something like postmaster and then save. Let's see if there is any other issue. So DMARC was one. And here we have a big problem. For which one? We didn't find a mail server MX record behind your domain name PSRP device. I can add an MX record for that server. And what is our default? What is our default MX record? I'm just going to use the same one, copy and add MX record for PSRP. Control V and priority of 10. And then we're going to save that. And in the next time we send, we are going to see if that is fixed. Your message could be improved. Who cares? That's a test email. All right, let's do the test again. And hopefully this time round, we are going to get better than 7. So let's go to mailtester.com again. I will copy that, come back, send a message, paste, send message. Come here, check the score. Oh, still 7. Okay, probably. Okay, you can see something else has been improved. There was an issue up there that is now improved. It's no longer affecting us. That is the SPF record is no longer an issue. Now the next thing that is being an issue is we didn't find a mail server at that. Okay. So this is probably because I've just changed the record now, but I've already added the MX record for that. That will require just a bit of time. Let's just confirm this. Copy. I can use DNS check for this. DNS check. DNS checker. I want to check the MX record. Paste. MX search. Okay, you can see the issue is it's still propagating in certain places. So that is fixed. And I haven't tested my mail server. I should test my mail server. Tester.